Chapter 2968. Golden Ant King Hiss. This. Zhuowen's expression was very ugly, but his movements were not slow. His right foot suddenly stomped in the air, and a terrifying wave of air spread out from the bottom of his foot. Soon after, an earth-shattering explosion sounded out. The Golden Ant King seemed to have sensed Zhuowen's intentions, and anger appeared in its eyes. It was angry that this human was too bold. Even at a time like this, he actually dared to come and snatch the Buddha yellow water bamboo that it valued the most. At this moment, Zhuowen clenched his fists and punched at the Golden Ant King, who was guarding the Buddha yellow water bamboo. He didn't dare to hold back in this punch. He unleashed all the power of the peak 5-star Pangu's sacred body. The Golden Ant King also let out a hiss. Its golden body released a dazzling light that was like the sun. Soon after, its golden body, which was not very big, began to rapidly spin like a golden electric drill. Boom! Zhuowen's fist force collided with the Golden Ant King. Immediately after, a terrifying shockwave exploded, and the entire cave shook violently as if it was about to collapse. Thud thud thud. Zhuowen couldn't help but retreat again and again. His right fist had actually become distorted. In the battle just now, his right fist had been directly hit by the Golden Ant King and had actually been injured. As for the Golden Ant King, although it was knocked back by the powerful fist energy, it was completely unscathed. It was completely unscathed and full of vigor. Moreover, after the Golden Ant King was blasted away, its tiny eyes were filled with excitement and bloodlust. It looked at Zhuowen with a gaze filled with the joy of hunting prey. Clearly, it had already treated Zhuowen as a relatively fun prey. The moment the Golden Ant King stabilized its body, it once again turned into a golden stream of light and quickly rushed toward Zhuowen. It didn't intend to give Zhuowen a chance to breathe at all. Fortunately, Zhuowen's Pangu's sacred body had a super self-healing ability. When the Golden Ant King continued to attack, Zhuowen's distorted right fist had almost recovered. Bang! The two of them collided again. Zhuowen was still at a disadvantage, and this time, it was even more serious. The bones of his right forearm were all twisted and dislocated, looking very deformed. Zhuowen snorted coldly and his eyes were cold. His distorted right forearm began to recover at a speed visible to the naked eye. Bang! 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 The Golden Ant King didn't slow down. It continued to rush over and immediately collided with Zhuowen again. After several collisions, Zhuowen was basically at a disadvantage. Moreover, the injuries on his body were getting more and more serious and horrifying. In the end, Zhuowen's clothes were tattered and blood was flowing out. He was in an extremely sorry state. If it weren't for his Pangu's sacred body's extremely powerful self-healing ability, he would have been killed by the Golden Ant King many times. This made Zhuowen's heart sink to the bottom. The Golden Ant King's strength was too extraordinary. In a one-on-one fight, Nguyen was no match for it at all. Originally, Nguyen could still use the Ho-E Heavenly Arrow to deal with the Golden Ant King. However, this world was too strange. A divine weapon couldn't play any role here. The Ho-E Heavenly Arrow and the Ho-E Heavenly Bow were indeed very powerful. However, both of them were divine weapons. In this world, the Ho-E Heavenly Bow and the Ho-E Heavenly Arrow were obviously of little value. Not only that, the Yama-Ghost diagram that Zhuowen had tried so hard to obtain couldn't be used in this world. This made Zhuowen very depressed. Zhuowen looked at the Buddha yellow water bamboo that was still growing in the center of the cave and the Golden Ant King that was crazily attacking in front of him. His eyes lit up and he immediately began to retreat to the edge of the cave. When the Golden Ant King saw that the human in front of it was beginning to retreat, a trace of disdain appeared in its eyes. However, its attacks were getting fiercer and fiercer. It looked like it wouldn't stop until it killed Zhuowen. Zhuowen also felt that the Golden Ant King's attacks had suddenly become fierce. His face was very ugly. His resistance was like a lonely boat in the sea, on the verge of capsizing. Finally, Zhuowen reluctantly approached the edge of the cave. He saw that the black ants guarding the edge of the cave were all baring their teeth at Zhuowen and blocking his path. However, they didn't attack Zhuowen. After all, they didn't dare to do anything without the Ant King's order. They could only stand at the edge of the cave and block Zhuowen's path of retreat. The Golden Ant King landed near Zhuon. It was in no hurry to continue attacking. Instead, it studied the human young man before it like a human. The mockery in its eyes became heavier and heavier. Zhuon stared at the Golden Ant King silently, but his mind wasn't on the Ant King. Instead, it was on the Buddha yellow water bamboo in the center of the cave. With the difference between him and the Golden Ant King, he knew that trying to snatch it from the Ant King's hands would be suicidal. Moreover, there was a very high chance that he would die at the Ant King's hands. As a result, the only feasible method right now was to use his space-time powers to immediately take the Buddha yellow water bamboo in the center of the cave. Then he would have to leave the cave immediately. When Zhuon first entered the cave, the Golden Ant King had been guarding the Buddha yellow water bamboo the entire time, so Zhuon didn't dare to use his space-time powers to steal it. The main point of this method was to catch the Ant King off guard. If he failed, the Ant King would immediately be on guard. There was basically no chance of him using it again. Now that Zhuon had lured the Ant King away, it was the perfect time for Zhuon to use his space-time powers to take the Buddha yellow water bamboo away and then leave the cave. When Zhuon reached the edge of the cave, he formed a seal with his right hand and extended a finger. Immediately, the space around him seemed to distort. Chapter 2969. Pursuit. The Golden Ant King was stunned. It stared at the empty center of the cave as if it had been struck by lightning. Zhuon took advantage of the moment when the Golden Ant King was stunned to take out an explosion formation from his spirit ring and toss it over without any hesitation. Rumble! A terrifying explosion rang out as the entire cave shook violently. Soon after, countless rocks piled up like mountains and fell down. It was quite a spectacular sight. The edge of the cave where Zhuon was blasted into a huge crater by the terrifying explosion. The black ants in front of Zhuon were naturally blasted into pieces by the terrifying explosion. Zhuon took advantage of this opportunity to twist his waist and crawl out of the natural cave. The Golden Ant King was furious. It had guarded the Buddha yellow water bamboo for countless years and had obtained great benefits from it. When it had first discovered the Buddha yellow water bamboo, it had not matured yet. It was the Golden Ant King that had guarded it until it matured. Moreover, the Buddha yellow water bamboo had only matured for a short period of time. Even an immature Buddha yellow water bamboo could bring it so many benefits. If it had continued to cultivate beside the Buddha yellow water bamboo for hundreds or thousands of years, its strength would definitely have been able to break through to a higher level and evolve to a higher level. However, the Buddha yellow water bamboo had disappeared. Its future was basically gone. How could the Golden Ant King not be furious? The Golden Ant King was pushed into the wall of the cave by the explosion of the explosion formation. It was embedded in the wall. However, the Golden Ant King's body was very terrifying. It was not affected too much. The Golden Ant King let out a furious roar. It shot out of the wall and immediately chased out of the cave. As for the surviving black ants, they quickly attacked under the command of the Golden Ant King. At this moment, on the grassland outside, a dense swarm of black ants could be seen burrowing out of the grassland. They were like black clouds pressing down on a city as they quickly chased after a figure. The instant Zhuon left the cave, he immediately took out the space-time roulette. He pushed it with all his might and turned into a streak of light as he shot into the distance. As for the black ant swarm behind him, his heart sank because he realized that the black ant swarm was extremely fast. He tried his best to activate the space-time roulette, but he couldn't shake off the black ant swarm completely. At the very front of the black ants was an exceptionally dazzling golden light. It was the Golden Ant King. The Golden Ant King's black eyes had turned blood red. It discovered that it was actually unable to catch up to the human in front of it, which made it even more anxious. The Golden Ant King let out another shrill cry, and the black ants behind it began to squirm, forming a gigantic black longsword in midair. This huge black sword was formed by countless black ants. The Golden Ant King stood on the tip of the black sword. In an instant, the black sword left the bowstring. It was extremely fast, as if it could shatter the sky. Its speed instantly increased by a lot, and it actually quickly closed the distance between it and Zhuon. Zhuan felt the terrifying wind behind him, and his expression changed drastically. The black sword quickly approached him. In a few breaths of time, it was already not far behind Zhuan. The terrifying wind was like the sharpest blade, causing his entire body to hurt as if it was being cut by a blade. This caused Zhuo Wen's heart to sink even further. Just the wind that had spread out was already so terrifying, so there was no need to mention how terrifying the power of the black longsword, as the main body of this attack, was. Thinking to this point, Zhuan took out another explosive destruction array and threw it at the black sword behind him. Boom! The explosion annihilation array exploded, and a terrifying explosive energy burst out like a volcano eruption. The black sword behind him only paused for a few breaths of time amidst the terrifying explosive energy, and then continued to chase after Zhuan. What was even more inconceivable to Zhuan was that the explosive destruction array did not cause much damage to the black sword. Zhuan threw out several explosive destruction arrays in succession, only to slow down the black sword behind him. However, he knew that if this continued, the black sword would definitely be able to catch up to him when the explosive destruction array was exhausted. However, Zhuan was very calm. When he entered the grassland, he had already calculated the correct direction to leave the grassland with the art of divination. The direction he had told Jiang Qixing, Yao Xiangjuan and the others to leave was the direction he had calculated. As long as he followed this direction, it should be very easy to leave the grassland. As long as he completely left the grassland, the Golden Ant King behind him would definitely not follow him out. It was the same with the strange flesh and blood he had encountered in the previous Blood Valley. It only guarded a certain area and was unable to cross over to other areas. Clearly, in this strange world, every geographical area had its own guardian. For example, the guardian of the Bloody Valley was the strange flesh and blood. The guardian of this grassland landscape was the terrifying Golden Ant King. The Golden Ant King standing at the head of the black sword behind him became very anxious when it realized that it had not caught up to Zhuan. It kept hissing loudly. "I'm almost there." Zhuan did his best to activate the space-time roulette under his feet. He saw a group of mountains in the distance. He knew that it was another landscape that did not belong to the grassland. As long as he entered the mountains, the Golden Ant King would not dare to pursue him. At that time, the Golden Ant King would not be able to do anything to him. The Golden Ant King also discovered the mountains in front of it. It could not help but hiss. Golden light erupted from its body and the countless black ants on the black sword under its feet began to wail in pain. The black sword immediately turned into a golden sword. At a closer look, the black ants that formed the sword were all burning with golden flames. Furthermore, they were wailing miserably as their presences rapidly weakened. Clearly, the Golden Ant King was sacrificing the life force of the black ants to obtain extreme speed in a short period of time. Rumble! After the black sword turned into a golden sword, its speed increased to a terrifying level. It arrived behind Zhuan in an instant and viciously slammed into his body. Zhuan was already prepared. He immediately used the profound creation mysterious light. Rays of profound light surrounded his body. Bang, bang, bang. Continuous explosions resounded. Zhuan let out a muffled groan and could not help but explode backwards. Countless cracks appeared on the creation mysterious light around him as it shattered. Chapter 2970. The doppelganger was destroyed. Among the countless black ant corpses, a golden light flashed out like lightning and rushed toward Zhuan. Zhuan did not even think about it. He summoned 2 sky-splitting blades and threw them toward the golden light. The moment Zhuan threw out the sky-splitting blades, he immediately retreated and continued to rush toward the mountains behind him. The Golden Ant King was very powerful. He could not use any of his trump cards in this world. He was obviously digging his own grave if he fought the Golden Ant King head-on. The Golden Ant King spun like a golden hurricane. After breaking the 2 sky-splitting blades, it did not slow down and continued to chase after Zhuan. The Golden Ant King apparently realized Zhuowen's intention. It increased its speed to the extreme. The moment Zhuowen was about to reach the border between the grassland and the mountains, it suddenly blocked in front of Zhuan. Its terrifying attack completely crushed in front of Zhuan. Bang! Helpless, Zhuowen unleashed several sky-splitting blades. Moreover, he continuously retreated backwards. Only then did he barely manage to cancel out the Golden Ant King's attack. At the same time, the Golden Ant King was already in front of Jun. It attacked Zhuowen crazily. The terrifying golden light was like the sun hanging high in the sky, blooming with dazzling light. Zhuowen's body emitted a crystal-clear light. At the same time, he used the sky-splitting blades, the death of heaven and earth, and the mysterious light of creation. At the same time, he used the Taoist art of tyrannical slaying with both fists. Each punch and each move was very powerful. Even so, Hun was still forced to retreat by the Golden Ant King. Countless cracks and patterns appeared on the surface of the peak 5-star Pangu's sacred body. Boom! Zhuowen suddenly punched out, smashing into the Golden Ant King's body. Then, his fist actually exploded into a mist of blood. Zhuowen, on the other hand, seemed to have suffered a heavy blow. He kept retreating, blood flowing from his mouth. The Golden Ant King's eyes glowed. The moment Zhuowen was repelled, it immediately closed in and attacked. It opened its mouth and spat out 9 beams of golden light, which sealed all the vital parts of Zhuowen's body. The 9 beams of golden light should be the Golden Ant King's most powerful trump card. They easily broke the mysterious light of creation around Zhuowen and blasted into Zhuowen's body. The 9 golden beams of light exploded within Zhuowen's body. Next, Zhuowen's body exploded like a corpse being torn apart by 5 horses, turning into clouds of blood mist. Zhuowen only let out a muffled groan as his entire body was destroyed by the 9 beams of golden light. After Zhuowen exploded into a bloody mist, the Golden Ant King rushed to the bloody mist and kept searching. Not long after, the Golden Ant King let out an earth-shattering roar of fury. This was because it couldn't find any traces of the Buddha yellow water bamboo around Zhuowen's corpse. This made the Golden Ant King furious. It had used its trump card in the end to kill this troublesome human cultivator. Moreover, the side effects of that trump card were very severe. Now that it had paid such a huge price, it didn't find anything in the end. How could the Golden Ant King not be flustered and exasperated? The Golden Ant King searched the surroundings for a while more. It even dug 3 feet into the ground, but it still didn't find anything. The Golden Ant King roared furiously and disappeared on the spot as a beam of golden light. Not long after the Golden Ant King left, a very inconspicuous speck of dust slowly floated up from the grassland in the distance. If one didn't look closely, this speck of dust didn't look very different from the specks of dust floating in the air. The speck of dust suddenly turned into a beam of black light and disappeared on the spot. It flew toward the mountain range in front of it. When the speck of dust finally entered the mountain range, it stuck to an irregular rock. Afterwards, the surface of the speck of dust lit up with white light. Soon after, a pale-faced figure stumbled to the ground. This was Zhuowen's original body. The speck of dust was naturally the great world that Zhuowen had refined. Zhuowen's eyes flickered. His expression was not very good. He took out a large pile of Heavenly Way's origin crystals from his great world. Soon after, he tapped his forehead with his right hand and took out a strand of soul. He then placed it on the Heavenly Way's origin crystals. Immediately, strands of dense energy surged out from the pile of Heavenly Way's origin crystals and entered the strand of soul. Soon after, a human skeleton began to take shape. However, after the skeleton was formed, flesh and blood began to gradually grow on the surface of the skeleton. In the end, it formed a handsome young man. It was Zhuowen's original appearance. Sigh. In this strange world, if my clone is destroyed, it won't be able to heal on its own without the support of Heavenly Way's origin crystals. It can only do so by absorbing the energy of the Heavenly Way's origin crystals. The clone slowly opened his eyes. His eyes shone with unprecedented light and contained worry. If it were not for the fact that his great world was inconspicuous enough and that the Golden Ant King did not think that it was just his clone, he probably would have died. After the clone was healed, Yuan put his original body into his great world as usual. Afterwards, the clone's appearance returned to that of the young man with 2 scars on his face. Chapter 2971. Yi Hanfei made things difficult for them. Yi Hanfei stood proudly in front of the group. Chao Kangcheng followed beside Yi Hanfei like a shadow with a flattering smile on his face. Jiang Qixing, you're really bold. How dare you kidnap junior sister Yao from my yin and yang divine sect? Chao Kangcheng looked at the gloomy-faced Jiang Qixing in front of him and shouted. Jiang Qixing frowned. He didn't look at Chao Kangcheng but at Yi Hanfei. He knew that Yi Hanfei had the right to speak in this group. Moreover, Yi Hanfei was the strongest among them. If they were to clash head-on, Yi Hanfei's strength was enough to wipe out their entire team. Jiang Qixing, how dare you ignore us? Chao Kangcheng was furious and took a step forward. Only then did Jiang Qixing set his gaze on Chao Kangcheng, and he said coldly, Chao Kangcheng, you and I are both at the God of Creation stage. If you don't want me to look down on you, then go ahead and battle me. Chao Kangcheng stopped abruptly and didn't say anything else. His cultivation level was indeed the same as Jiang Qixing's, but Jiang Qixing had relied on his own talent to cultivate to this level. On the other hand, Chao Kangcheng had used a large number of pills and resources to reach this level. Although he was already a first-stage Genesis Lord of the third step, he hadn't comprehended the Tao of the third step. It could be said that Chao Kangcheng's strength was much weaker than ordinary Genesis Lords. He could only bully second-stage and first-stage Tao validation cultivators. Therefore, if he was asked to fight Jiang Qixing head-on, he would definitely not dare to do so and would immediately cower. Jiang Qixing ignored Chao Kangcheng's silence and looked at Yi Hanfei. Yi Hanfei slowly walked forward and patted Chao Kangcheng to get him to step back. He looked at Jiang Qixing arrogantly and said, Jiang Qixing, I won't make things difficult for you. You've crossed my bottom line by taking away a disciple of my yin and yang divine sect without permission. However, seeing that your sun-chasing temple and my yin and yang divine sect are both Tao palaces, I'll give your sect master face. Hand over your spirit rings and I'll let you go immediately. Yi Hanfei placed his hands behind his back, his tone filled with arrogance. Jiang Qixing's expression changed slightly. He finally understood why Yi Hanfei was so relentless towards their team. It turned out that he wanted their spirit rings and resources. He knew very well that in this strange world, all the cultivation resources he had were more important than his life. Without these resources, he might not be able to survive for long in this world. Yao Xiangjuan stepped forward at this moment, and she gazed at Yi Hanfei and said, Senior brother Yi, I'll go with you, but you can't make things difficult for brother Jiang and the others. Yi Hanfei didn't care about Yao Xiangjuan's words and said lightly, Junior sister Yao, just come here. This Jiang Qixing is very bold. If I don't teach him a lesson, I'm afraid he won't take our yin and yang divine sect seriously. You? Yao Xiangjuan's beautiful eyes narrowed as anger surfaced on her face. She finally understood that Yi Hanfei's claim that she had been abducted by Jiang Qixing and the others was most likely an excuse. In the end, Yi Hanfei's true goal was the resources on Jiang Qixing and the others. Junior sister Yao, don't be so wishy-washy. Hurry up and come here. Yi Hanfei was impatient when he saw Yao Xiangjuan standing there foolishly. He stretched out his right hand and grabbed at Yao Xiangjuan. Yao Xiangjuan came back to her senses and blasted Yi Hanfei's hand away with her jade-like palm. She let out a muffled groan and couldn't help but retreat. Fortunately, Jiang Qixing was behind her and supported her. Otherwise, Yao Xiangjuan would have been in quite a sorry state this time. Junior sister Yao, are you going to disobey my orders again? I want to ask you, are you really a disciple of our yin and yang divine sect? You've been siding with outsiders time and time again. Do you really think that I, Yi Hanfei, have a good temper? Yi Hanfei's face darkened as he glared at Yao Xiangjuan, who was being supported by Jiang Qixing. Jiang Qixing was furious and said, Yi Hanfei, aren't you going too far? Junior sister Yao is your junior sister. How can you do this to her? Yi Hanfei didn't care at all and said, I only need junior sisters who listen to me. As for junior sisters who don't listen to me, they're like strangers to me. Do you think I'll show mercy to strangers? At this point, Yi Hanfei became even more impatient and said coldly, Jiang Qixing, I've been very polite to you. Now hand over your spirit rings. Otherwise, don't blame me for attacking you. "Senior brother Jiang, let's fight it out with them. If we hand over our spirit rings, won't we be waiting for death? Rather than waiting for death, we might as well fight them to the death," a male cultivator beside Jiang Qixing said angrily. The other members of Jiang Qixing's team were also furious. Yi Hanfei was really going too far. Asking them to hand over their spirit rings was akin to cutting off their own path of retreat. Jiang Qixing raised his right hand and motioned for his team to be quiet. Then he looked at Yi Hanfei. Yi Hanfei smiled and looked at Jiang Qixing. He said indifferently, "Jiang Qixing, you should know the gap between your team and mine. Not to mention the team's strength, just your strength alone is far from mine. What do you have to fight us?" At this point, Yi Hanfei's eyes suddenly turned cold. He said, "If I were you, I would have obediently handed over my spirit rings to avoid a fatal disaster instead of encouraging my team members to die. Yi Hanfei, we're indeed weaker than you, but I'm afraid it won't be that easy for you to take us down." Jiang Qixing snorted coldly and pinched the void with his right hand to take out a long sword. However, the luster on the surface of the long sword was dim. It had obviously lost the divinity that a divine artifact should have. After all, divine artifacts were almost no different from ordinary objects in this world. Yi Hanfei's eyes turned cold. He said, "It seems that you really intend to fight us. In that case, don't blame us for being impolite. Kangqing, kill them all. Leave no one alive." After saying that, Yi Hanfei's aura suddenly erupted, and he flew toward Jiang Qixing like a furious dragon. Jiang Qixing was not afraid. He stepped on the Big Dipper, and the long sword in his hands swept out like flowing water. Bang bang bang. In just an instant, Yi Hanfei and Jiang Qixing engaged in a fierce battle. Both of them were Genesis stage experts, so the aftermath of their battle was very terrifying. However, both of them knew that this world could not replenish their heavenly energy, so they did not use large-scale techniques that consumed a lot of energy during the battle. Even so, Jiang Qixing soon fell into a disadvantage. After all, his cultivation was only at the early-stage Genesis stage, while Yi Hanfei was already at the late-stage Genesis stage. The gap between the two of them was not small. Chapter 2972. Yao Xiangjuan's decision, Jiang Qixing, the gap between us is too great. Do you still want to continue fighting? Yi Hanfei casually shattered Jiang Qixing's sword qi and leisurely strode over to Jiang Qixing. His right palm blasted out like lightning and landed heavily on Jiang Qixing's chest. Boom! Jiang Qixing violently spat out a mouthful of blood and flew back. His face suddenly became incomparably pale as he crashed heavily to the ground. Yi Hanfei slowly landed in front of Jiang Qixing with his hands behind his back and stomped Jiang Qixing back down to the ground. The moment Jiang Qixing was captured alive, the battle on the other side had also ended. In Jiang Qixing's team, only Jiang Qixing was a third-step Dao Vindication powerhouse. The rest were second-step Dao Vindication masters like the Profound Theory Lord and the Eternal Overlord. Although Chao Kangqing's cultivation was forcefully piled up with medicine, he had at least stepped into the threshold of the third-step Dao Vindication. Although he wasn't as strong as ordinary early-stage Genesis Lords, he was more than enough to deal with second-step Dao Vindication cultivators. Jiang Qixing's team members were basically suppressed, while Chao Kangqing shuttled through the team like a killing machine. Every time he shuttled through the team, he took a life. At the same time, he didn't forget to take the spirit rings of the cultivators who were killed. Jiang Qixing raised his head with difficulty and saw his fellow disciples being killed out of the corner of his eye. He roared, his anger overtaking his reason. Boom! Jiang Qixing's body suddenly exploded with terrifying energy and rushed away from Yi Hanfei's right foot. Yi Hanfei clearly didn't expect this to happen. His right foot hurt and he couldn't help but retreat. Jiang Qixing's body erupted with a terrifying light like the scorching sun. He instantly disappeared and swept in front of Chao Kangqing. At this moment, Chao Kangqing had just killed the nearest disciple of the sun-chasing temple. Just as he was about to move on to the next disciple, he felt a gust of wind whistling in front of him. Then he saw Jiang Qixing rushing over like a blazing sun. A scorching heat wave swept over, bringing endless fear of death to Chao Kangqing. He roared and kept retreating. However, Jiang Qixing was so fast that he caught up with Chao Kangxing in the blink of an eye. Jiang Qixing clenched his hands in the air, and two golden swords that blazed brighter than the sun appeared in his palms. Then he slashed at Chao Kangxing's hands. Chao Kangxing panicked and hurriedly waved all the defensive items on his body. Unfortunately, his defense was no different from tofu. As soon as he took it out, it was smashed into pieces by Jiang Qixing's two-handed golden sword. No, spare my life. After shattering all of Chao Kangxing's defenses, Jiang Qixing suddenly stood up with the golden sword in his right hand and slashed down from above Chao Kangxing's forehead. Obviously, Jiang Qixing had no intention of convincing Chao Kangxing to beg for mercy. Puchi! Chao Kangxing let out a blood-curdling scream as his entire body was blasted into two halves. Even his divine soul was scattered, and he had completely perished. Yi Hanfei's expression turned ugly when he saw Jiang Qixing easily kill Chao Kangxing. He took a step forward and rushed toward Jiang Qixing. I really didn't expect that you would dare to burn your blood essence in a place like this. You're simply courting death. I'm afraid you don't have much strength left after killing Chao Kangxing. I originally wanted to spare your life, but unfortunately, you don't know how to appreciate kindness. Go to hell. Yi Hanfei's eyes were cold as he threw the folding fan in his hand into the air. Suddenly, the folding fan turned into countless fan shadows that heavily enveloped Jiang Qixing. Jiang Qixing's face was very pale at the moment, and the golden swords in his hands were somewhat dim. He had indeed burned his blood essence just now to obtain more power. Unfortunately, there was no heavenly law power in this world, so the time he could burn his blood essence was too short. He could clearly feel that his whole body was filled with a sense of powerlessness at this moment. Bang! 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 Jiang Qixing barely pulled himself together and waved his hands. Golden light blazed all over his body as he resisted Yi Hanfei's fan shadow attacks. However, the surrounding fan shadows seemed to be endless and constantly bombarded Jiang Qixing, causing him to be exhausted. Puchi! Jiang Qixing's movements began to slow down. Suddenly, several fan shadows broke through his defense and left a huge wound on his shoulder blade. Blood flowed down like a waterfall. Next, more and more injuries appeared on Jiang Qixing's body, and his movements became slower and slower. Yi Hanfei floated not far away, silently watching Jiang Qixing fight like a cornered beast with a cruel smile on his face. Senior brother Yi, we've killed all the people in Chasing Sun Temple. What about junior sister Yao? A disciple of the Yin and Yang divine sect came to Yi Hanfei and asked respectfully. Yi Hanfei crossed his arms and cast a sidelong glance at Yao Xiangjuan, who was in a rather sorry state, not far away. He said indifferently, Junior sister Yao, I'll give you a chance. Go over and kill Jiang Qixing for me, and our team will accept you again. At this point, Yi Hanfei pinched the void with his right hand. Suddenly, the fan shadows around Jiang Qixing became much more violent and appeared around Jiang Qixing's limbs. Suddenly, a terrifying blood mist burst out of Jiang Qixing's limbs. Jiang Qixing groaned and knelt on the ground with his hands supporting his body. His whole body twitched. I've already cut off his tendons in his hands and feet. Now go over and kill him with your own hands. The corners of Yi Hanfei's mouth were filled with a cold smile as he stared straight at Yao Xiangjuan. At this moment, Yao Xiangjuan had been released and collapsed on the ground. There was a trace of helplessness in her beautiful eyes, but it was soon replaced by determination. Junior sister Yao, didn't you hear what I said? If you don't do as I say, don't blame me for not being polite to you. Although you're my junior sister, you've disobeyed my orders many times. I don't mind staining my hands with the blood of fellow disciples. Yi Hanfei's voice was very cold. Yao Xiangjuan's delicate body trembled and she looked at Yi Hanfei in disbelief. Senior brother Yi, you want to kill me? Don't be so surprised. As long as you listen to me, I won't do anything to you, Yi Hanfei said indifferently. The other cultivators of the Yin and Yang divine sect lowered their heads and did not say a word. They more or less knew Yi Hanfei's character, so they had never disobeyed Yi Hanfei in the sect or in the team because they knew that it was not wise. Junior sister Yao, you'd better listen to senior brother Yi. After all, we're fellow disciples. You'll really anger senior brother Yi if you're so rebellious. someone in the team advised. Yi Hanfei stood there silently and didn't say anything. He only looked at Yao Xiangjuan calmly. Yao Xiangjuan smiled sadly and said, "Senior brother Yi, although I'm a disciple of the Yin and Yang divine sect and your junior sister, I'm still me. I don't need anyone to tell me what to do and what to do." Chapter 2973. Yi Hanfei was furious. Good, you're good. It seems like you still haven't realized it. I don't need a junior sister like you. Yi Hanfei couldn't help but shake his head with disappointment in his eyes. Shortly after, he slowly walked towards Yao Xiangjuan. His powerful aura suppressed Yao Xiangjuan, making it difficult for her to move. Yao Xiangjuan's delicate body trembled, but she didn't shrink back. Instead, she stubbornly looked at Yi Hanfei, who was slowly walking over. Yi Hanfei walked in front of Yao Xiangjuan and looked at the stubborn beauty before him. He lifted Yao Xiangjuan's beautiful chin with his right hand and gently stroked it. Yao Xiangjuan's beautiful eyes were filled with disgust. She wanted to move away, but unfortunately, she was completely suppressed by Yi Hanfei's aura and couldn't move at all. "Junior sister Yao, you're so beautiful. I didn't want to destroy you. Unfortunately, you're the one who challenged my bottom line time and time again. Now that you've angered me, there's really no other way. Don't blame me." Yi Hanfei joked. "Bah!" Yao Xiangjuan spat and unleashed the remaining energy in her body. She turned her head away and didn't want to look at Yi Hanfei's face. Yi Hanfei's eyes were filled with anger. He gave Yao Xiangjuan a slap and knocked her to the ground. He said indifferently, "I said that you'll regret following Longwen into the door of darkness. Now that Longwen isn't by your side, I'm afraid he's either dead or fled in fear. What a coward. If time could be reversed, I wonder if you would still follow that coward?" Yi Hanfei sneered. Yao Xiangjuan's beautiful eyes were calm as she said, "To be honest, Yi Hanfei, you can't even compare to a single hair on senior brother Long. In my opinion, you might not even be stronger than senior brother Long." Speaking up to here, Yao Xiangjuan sighed inwardly. She recalled how Longwen had charged into the black ants to save them and risked his life. Later on, he even let them leave first while he faced the black ants alone. As for Yi Hanfei, other than bullying fellow disciples and the weak, he really didn't have any other merits. He was far from being comparable to Longwen. I wonder how senior brother Long is doing now. I hope he's fine. Thinking of Longwen, Yao Xiangjuan's beautiful eyes became absent-minded. Originally, she thought that she would only fall in love with Zhuowen for the rest of her life and would not have any thoughts about other men. However, she also knew that Zhuowen already had someone he loved, and her love would only end in failure. But now, she discovered that she had an even stronger desire for Longwen. Could it be that I'm starting to like the dragon text? Yi Hanfei noticed that when Yao Xiangjuan mentioned the dragon runes, her beautiful eyes revealed a dazed look. He knew that Yao Xiangjuan was thinking about the dragon runes. A flame of jealousy burned in his heart. He was the #1 genius of the Yin and Yang divine sect and ranked 3rd on the Starry Sky contribution list. How could he not compare to Zhuowen? Why was Yao Xiangjuan so obsessed with Longwen? Then go to hell. Yi Hanfei was enraged. He raised the fan in his hand and swung it at Yao Xiangjuan's head. He wanted to kill her completely. However, his attack was quickly blocked by a terrifying gust of wind. Then, a huge force spread out, causing Yi Hanfei to groan and retreat repeatedly. The moment Yi Hanfei retreated, a tall and straight figure leaped into the field. The figure's right hand formed a fist and fiercely punched at Yi Hanfei. Yi Hanfei came back to his senses. Similarly, he was not afraid. He formed a seal with his right hand and pointed a finger. A spiral force exploded. Boom. Unfortunately, Yi Hanfei's finger was directly destroyed. Yi Hanfei was forced to retreat again. It was not until he retreated several hundred steps that he barely managed to stop himself. He raised his head and looked at the figure's true face. It was a young man with 2 scars on his face. His eyes were like lightning as he coldly stared at Yi Hanfei. Longwen. Yao Xiangjuan looked at the tall and straight figure in front of her and suddenly felt a part of her heart soften. Tears flowed down her cheeks involuntarily. Jiang Qixing's tendons in his hands and feet had been cut. The only thing he could move at this moment was his head. He raised his head with difficulty and looked at Zhuan with a smile. "Brother Long, you're finally here." Zhuan slowly walked towards Jiang Qixing. Several disciples of the Yin and Yang divine sect surrounding Jiang Qixing were trembling in fear. They watched Zhuan walk over but did not dare to make a move. They had seen with their own eyes how terrifying Long Wen's strength was. Even elder MDA of the Mermaid clan had been beaten up by him. If they went up, they would be looking for trouble. Zhuan did not pay attention to the cultivators of the Yin and Yang divine sect. Instead, he walked to Jiang Qixing's side and checked his condition. His expression was not very good. Yao Xiangjuan was no longer suppressed by Yi Hanfei's aura and naturally regained her mobility. She followed Zhuan to Jiang Qixing's side. "Junior sister Yao, feed this divine pill to brother Jiang. Take good care of him." Yin handed a golden divine pill to Yao Xiangjuan. Yao Xiangjuan's expression changed when she saw it. She couldn't help but exclaim in surprise, "This is the primordial mind protection divine pill?" Yi Hanfei, who was originally angry, was stunned when he heard that it was the primordial mind protection divine pill. He knew about the primordial mind protection divine pill. It was a top healing divine pill. It was a Genesis divine pill and was very precious. Even Yi Hanfei did not have many of such divine pills. He would only use them when he was in danger. However, Long Wen had casually taken it out and given it to Jiang Qixing. This was too extravagant. Zhuan did not care. He was an immortal master of the Pill Array Immortal Alliance. When he had become an immortal master, Ji Wuming had given him many Genesis divine pills. This primordial mind protection divine pill was not worth mentioning to him. "Long Wen, do you have many of these primordial mind protection divine pills on you?" Yi Hanfei licked his lips and suddenly asked. Zhuan stood up and looked at Yi Hanfei with a cold gaze. He said indifferently, "I do have many of them. But do you want them?" Yi Hanfei smiled proudly and said indifferently, "Since you have such good things, then hand over all the primordial mind protection divine pills on you to me. I will not do anything to you and let you leave on your own." Zhuan had a strange look in his eyes. Was there something wrong with Yi Hanfei's brain? Even at this point he was still acting tough. Could it be that this guy was so confident that he, Zhuo Wen, was inferior to him? "Why should I hand over all the primordial mind protection divine pills to you? Tell me, who do you think you are?" Zhuan stood in place and asked. Yi Hanfei was taken aback. Soon after, his eyes narrowed. He did not conceal the killing intent in his eyes as he sneered, "What an arrogant fellow. Do you think that after defeating junior brother Chao Kongqing and MDA who suppressed his cultivation, you are invincible and don't even have me in your eyes? I'm sorry. You're wrong. I've never taken you seriously. You're overestimating yourself." Zhuo Wen shook his head. "You are courting death." Chapter 2974. Lei Qianju Rumble. Yi Hanfei was very powerful. Just this leap alone caused the air to explode, displaying the strength of a late-stage god of creation. Zhuan narrowed his eyes, feeling a little depressed. The aura that Yi Hanfei displayed was not the slightest bit inferior to Sauron, who had been killed by him. If they really fought, Yi Hanfei might not necessarily be weaker than Sauron. Bang! While Zhuo Wen was pondering, Yi Hanfei had already arrived in front of Zhuo Wen. His right hand pointed at Zhuo Wen and countless streams of energy that were like the sharpest blades in the world swept toward Zhuo Wen's meridians and vital points. Zhuo Wen calmly clasped his palms together. His body emitted a sparkling and translucent light. The moment the terrifying energy swept past him, it was offset by the sparkling and translucent light emitted by his body. Yi Hanfei frowned slightly, feeling a little surprised. He had not expected Long Wen's body to be so strong, even though his cultivation was not high. He had actually taken his attack head-on without suffering any damage. However, Yi Hanfei wasn't discouraged because of this. That attack from before was merely a prelude, and it wasn't even 1/10 of his strength. Even though he was surprised that Zhuo Wen was able to forcefully resist such an attack with his body, he didn't feel it was too unbelievable. Yi Hanfei stomped his feet repeatedly in midair. Every time he stomped, azure blue lightning would burst forth. It was as though Yi Hanfei had become one with the lightning. Azure blue lightning silhouettes appeared in midair. Bang, bang. Every time he flashed, the lightning that burst forth was extremely sharp and powerful. Yao Xiangjuan and the others who were watching from the sidelines all revealed looks of fear. They could all feel the terrifying, destructive power of the lightning. If they were to face this kind of lightning head-on, they would probably be severely injured at the very least. However, what shocked them even more was that Long One, who was being bombarded by such terrifying lightning, was actually able to take it head-on with his body. He chased after Yi Hanfei amidst the endless lightning. Rumble! Another bolt of lightning struck Zhuowen's shoulder blade, slowing down Zhuowen's movements. Meanwhile, Yi Hanfei disappeared from the spot and reappeared elsewhere. Yi Hanfei's expression was not very good. This movement technique was personally taught to him by their sect master, and Xiaojin. Not only was it extremely fast in escaping, but it could also be used to attack. Every bolt of lightning released was extremely powerful. Moreover, this kind of lightning was not only targeted at the physical body, it also had the destructive power to penetrate into the depths of one's soul. However, Longwen was as Hanfei, Yi Hanfei's movements as he of the lightning. Even if this person's physical body was extraordinarily strong, this lightning was also targeting the spirit. Could it be that this person's spirit was not affected at all? Indeed, it was as Yi Hanfei had imagined. Zhuowen's soul was not greatly affected. His soul was far stronger than the average cultivators. Even the souls of many Genesis lords were inferior to Zhuowen's. In addition, Nguyen had the Panga banner, a heaven-defying treasure, in his spirit. The moment the thunderbolt drilled into his spirit, it was intercepted and extinguished by the Panga banner. On the other hand, Nguyen had cultivated the sacred body of Pangu. Although he was only at the peak of the 5 stars realm, his self-healing ability was terrifying. Every time the lightning struck his body, Zhuowen's body would quickly heal itself. Therefore, it seemed that Zhuowen's physical body was not affected at all. However, what gave Zhuowen a headache was the mystery of Yi Hanfei's movement technique. Yi Hanfei's speed was so fast that it would be difficult for Zhuowen to catch him in a short period of time. Thunderous annihilation trace. Yi Hanfei roared like a wild beast. Suddenly, his speed increased several times. Only an afterimage was left in the air. It was impossible to see his real body. The surrounding thunderbolts became several times denser. They fell endlessly and gathered on Zhuowen's body. Mysterious light of creation. Zhuowen's eyes were solemn. He formed a seal with both hands. He felt a trace of pressure and used the mysterious light of creation. A hazy white light enveloped his body like the most loyal protective halo. Sizzle! Terrifying thunderbolts fell densely and landed on the surface of the mysterious light of creation. Endless sparks and thunderbolts burst out. It was exceptionally dazzling. Yi Hanfei put his hands behind his back and floated in the air. He looked down at the figure that had been completely engulfed by the thunderbolts. His eyes were full of pride. You have some skills, but this is as far as you go. Thunderous Annihilation Trace is the ultimate move of my movement technique. It's extremely powerful. You will definitely die. Yi Hanfei smiled confidently. He felt that Longwen was dead for sure. There was no way that he could survive. Boom. However, Yi Hanfei's smile did not last long. A powerful and blazing red light burst out from the thunderbolts. Immediately after, a figure covered in red light broke out from the thunderbolts. Under Yi Hanfei's incredulous gaze, he arrived in front of Yi Hanfei and ruthlessly slapped Yi Hanfei's handsome face. The slap carried a terrifying destructive force. Yi Hanfei's face was smashed. His flesh was badly mangled and his broken bones were exposed. Yi Hanfei fell to the ground and his body twitched. He struggled to stand up. Senior brother Yi. The disciples of the Yin and Yang divine sect who were standing not far away gasped when they saw Yi Hanfei's face. The left side of Yi Hanfei's face was badly mangled. He did not look like a normal person at all. It was hideous and terrifying. Yi Hanfei's body twitched and he struggled to get up. His face was burning with pain. In particular, a destructive force seemed to be constantly drilling into his flesh and trying to erode the structure of his body. Yi Hanfei was terrified. He desperately urged his strength to resist the strange destructive force. Zhuan slowly landed on the ground and looked indifferently at the battered Yi Hanfei. His slap just now was not simple. He had used the universal annihilation profound meaning. His slap carried the destructive force of the universal annihilation profound meaning. This force was like a poison. Once hit, it would continuously penetrate into the cultivator's body and continue to destroy the other tissues and organs in the depths of the cultivator's body. At this moment, the unlucky Yi Hanfei was obviously fighting against the destructive force that had entered his body. Zhuan slowly walked toward Yi Hanfei. The latter clearly saw Zhuowen's actions. A trace of fear flashed in his eyes and he began to retreat. Right now, they are gathering people to kill that exotic beast and leave this world. Just as Zhuowen was about to leave the encampment and survey the surroundings, Jiang Qixing suddenly called out to him and handed a jade talisman to Zhuowen. Zhuowen opened the jade talisman and looked at it for a while before putting it away. His gaze became very serious as he returned it to Jiang Qixing and said, "Brother Jiang, thank you for telling me this." He was not familiar with either Yi Qidong or Zhong Li Haoyan, so it was natural that he did not receive any news from them. However, this news was very important to him. After all, it was naturally best for him to be able to leave this world. If he had not met Jiang Qixing, he would not have received this news and missed the opportunity to leave this world. Therefore, he was somewhat glad. "Brother Long, you don't have to be so polite. With your strength, I think Yi Qidong and Zhong Li Haoyan would be overjoyed if you went to help." After all, the two of them sent a message to gather everyone to help. Obviously, the exotic beast at the exit is very powerful. Even if Yi Qidong and Zhong Li Haoyan teamed up, they would not have much confidence in defeating it. Jiang Qixing's expression was grave, and there was a hint of worry between his brows. "Yes, but no matter how powerful that exotic beast is, we must break out. Otherwise, we will only be waiting for death here. The coordinates Yi Qidong gave us should be 3 regions behind the mountain range we are in. Therefore, we must gather there. I will first look for an exit in this region. You guys can rest at ease and recuperate first." After Zhuowen finished speaking, Jiang Qixing and Yao Xiangjuan both nodded, and Zhuowen left the encampment. Zhuowen stood halfway up the mountain, looking up at the layers of clouds above. He was unable to see where the peak of the mountain was. The direction Yi Hanfei had fled in was the peak of this mountain. He suspected that the exit to the mountain range should be on this mountain peak. After all, Yi Hanfei had also come from another region. Since he had not met Yi Hanfei in the grassland region, it could only mean that Yi Hanfei had come from another region. Zhuowen knew the entrance to the mountain range through the grassland, but he did not know where the entrance to the other region was. However, he knew that Yi Hanfei definitely knew. "Let's go up and take a look." Zhuowen's eyes flickered. He pushed off with his right foot and leaped into the air like a cannonball, rushing into the clouds above at an extremely fast speed. This mountain peak was very high. Zhuowen flew for several hours in the hazy clouds, but he found that the surroundings were still white and there were no signs of reaching the peak. Whoosh, whoosh, whoosh. Suddenly, the clouds around him began to drift rapidly. Zhuowen stopped, his gaze becoming very vigilant. The clouds were drifting rapidly, which meant that something was moving quickly in the clouds. Moreover, he was very sure that the drifting clouds had nothing to do with him. Obviously, something was rushing towards him. Could it be Yi Hanfei? Zhuowen had a strange look in his eyes, but he quickly rejected Yi Hanfei's idea. Yi Hanfei had just fought with him and suffered serious injuries. It was impossible for him to stay behind to ambush him, unless Yi Hanfei's brain had short-circuited. Soon, the whistling sound approached, and a fishy wind blew over. Only then did Zhuowen see that it was a snow-white python. This giant python was hundreds of meters long, and its huge snow-white body circled around the mountain several times. Its pair of huge lantern-like eyes stared straight at Zhuowen, and there was a greedy light in them. "I didn't expect it to be a beast." Zhuowen narrowed his eyes and struck out with both hands. He performed the tyrannical skill of slaying Tao and combined it with the power of the Pangu sacred body. He struck out with his palm, which seemed to have turned into an indestructible devil blade, standing on the giant python's head. Bang! What shocked Zhuowen was that the hardness of the giant python's head was far beyond his imagination. When his palm blade struck the giant python's head, it only caused the giant python to hiss in pain. It didn't even break through its skin. On the contrary, he was pushed back by the impact and staggered. The giant python roared in pain. Its eyes were full of murderous intent. It attacked Zhuowen again. Not far from Zhuowen, it opened its bloody mouth and spat out a cold storm. This storm was very terrifying. Everything it touched was frozen and shattered. Even the air seemed to be frozen and shattered by this storm. Zhuowen stepped on the void and performed the power of time and space. He disappeared on the spot. When he reappeared, he was already on the giant python's head. Chapter 2976. Iridescent Vinding. The sky-splitting blade was indeed extraordinary. It had actually pierced nearly a foot deep into the python's head. White blood spurted out, splashing onto Zhuowen's body. He could feel a chilling intent. He had not expected the python's blood to be ice-cold. Swoosh! Feeling the pain, the giant python swung its huge tail toward Zhuowen's head. Zhuowen used the power of space-time again and disappeared. The huge tail struck the python's head. The giant python let out a blood-curdling screech. The strength of this tail strike was too great, directly causing it to feel dizzy and see stars. Zhuowen took advantage of this opening to leap up. The sky-splitting blade with both hands stabbed at the python's weak point. This was the python's weakest point. The sky-splitting blade easily pierced through the python's skin and entered its flesh. Zhuowen gripped the sky-splitting blade with both hands and quickly ran around the python's body. As he ran, the sky-splitting blade slashed through the python's vital point, leaving a huge wound on the python's body. White blood poured down from the python's body like a torrential downpour. The cold blood froze the surface of the mountain into crystalline ice. Zhuowen ran all the way to the python's head. He just happened to meet the wound on the head. Then, with a shout, he stabbed the sky-splitting blade downwards. Immediately, the python screamed miserably. Its entire body was cut in half by the sky-splitting blade. White blood splattered everywhere. It was a spectacular sight. After slaying the python, Zhuowen's breathing became slightly ragged. His face was pale. He did not immediately rush up. Instead, he found a crack in the mountain and took out a Heavenly Tao origin crystal from his great world to recover his energy. 2 hours later, Zhuowen put away the remaining Heavenly Law origin crystals and continued climbing up the mountain. At the same time, he felt somewhat helpless. Every time he fought, he would need quite a few Heavenly Law origin crystals to recover. Although he had quite a lot of Heavenly Law origin crystals on him, he would soon run out if he continued to squander them like this. For the next few days, Zhuowen didn't encounter any danger. When he reached the top of the mountain, Zhuowen knew that the only danger on this mountain should be the giant python. This python was actually very powerful. It was most likely around the God of Creation intermediate stage. If ordinary cultivators encountered it, they would most likely become its meal. Unfortunately, he met Zhuowen. Zhuowen couldn't help but think of the golden ant king he had encountered in the grassland. The giant python's strength was far inferior to the golden ant king. Zhuowen had no chance of winning against the golden ant king, but he could defeat the mountain python. From the looks of it, the guardians of different landforms in this world had different strengths. Something's wrong. Zhuowen realized that something was wrong. He thought of the Buddha yellow water bamboo he had obtained from the golden ant king's nest. He knew that the golden ant king was much more powerful than this mountain python because of the Buddha yellow water bamboo. Without the Buddha yellow water bamboo, the golden ant king's strength should be about the same as this mountain python's. Zhuowen's eyes narrowed. From the looks of it, he could determine whether there was some kind of powerful treasure hidden in a region based on the strength of the guardians of each region. Zhuowen found the giant python's nest at the top of the mountain. As he expected, there wasn't anything in the giant python's nest. There wasn't even any ordinary godly medicine. Aside from the giant python's nest, Zhuowen also found a rainbow vine at the top of the mountain. The vine was as thick as 10 people hugging it, and it stretched all the way to the sky. As it was really too tall, Zhuowen couldn't see where it led to. Zhuan guessed that the end of the vine should be the path that led out of the mountain range and to the next region. Zhuan didn't climb the vine. Instead, he went down the mountain and returned to the campsite at the mountainside. Brother Long, is there an exit out of this region at the top of the mountain? Jiang Qixing asked hopefully when he saw Zhuan return. Zhuan nodded and said, "At the top of the mountain, there is a huge rainbow vine that stretches to the boundless sky. I think that should be the path that leads to the next region." Zhuan also told Jiang Qixing and Yao Xiangjuan about their encounter with the giant python on the mountain peak. Jiang Qixing and Yao Xiangjuan weren't surprised. Before they met Zhuan, they had also encountered several guardians of different regions. They weren't surprised that every region had a guardian. "Brother Jiang, Miss Yao, you two rest for a few days. Once you've recovered, we'll set off." After Zhuan finished speaking, he randomly chose a place and sat down cross-legged. Time passed. 3 days later, Zhuan left the mountainside with Jiang Qixing and Yao Xiangjuan and rushed towards the top of the mountain. There really is a 7-colored vine. This vine is so huge. Yao Xiangjuan stood at the top of the mountain and looked at the vine that connected heaven and earth in front of her. Her expression changed and she felt that it was unbelievable. This rainbow vine looks very long. If we really want to pass through it, I'm afraid it will take a lot of time. Jiang Qixing frowned slightly and said, "It should be, but this is the only way. We can only climb up honestly." Zhuan nodded. Jiang Qixing and Yao Xiangjuan also nodded in agreement. Next, the three of them climbed the rainbow vine with their bare hands. The three of them weren't ordinary people. They climbed the vine very quickly. After a while, the mountain peak below was completely out of sight. Half a month later, the three of them finally arrived at the end of the vine. They saw that the end of the vine was connected to an oval-shaped planet. Moreover, there were 7 huge pits on the surface of this blood-red planet. The moment Zhuan saw this blood-red planet, he frowned slightly. He found that the shape of this blood-red planet was a bit like a heart that had stopped beating. Especially the veins on the surface of this planet, they were too similar. Isn't this place the area that Yi Qidong told me about? I thought that we would have to pass through 3 or 4 areas before arriving here. I didn't expect that we would already be here. Jiang Qixing looked at the blood-red planet in front of him and couldn't help but rub his hands. Zhuan looked thoughtful. When he saw this blood-red planet, he knew that this was the place that Yi Qidong had mentioned. "Let's go in first. Brother Jiang, after we go in, you can contact Yi Qidong and ask him to take us to see the exit of this world," Zhuan said to Jiang Qixing. Jiang Qixing patted his chest and promised that there would be no problem. The three of them followed the vine and completely entered the planet. The moment they stepped onto the blood-red planet, Zhuan immediately felt the blood in his body boil for a moment. His body stiffened. "Brother Long, what's wrong?" Jiang Qixing noticed Zhuan's abnormal state and couldn't help but ask. Zhuan came back to his senses and shook his head. "I'm fine. I just thought of something." Chapter 2977. SS Rift Valley. Jiang Qixing led the way while Yao Xiangjuan and Zhuan followed behind him silently. Yao Xiangjuan glanced at the young man beside her and was a little surprised. She found that the young man beside her had become silent ever since they entered the blood-red planet. "Longwen, you've been quiet ever since you entered this place. Is there something on your mind?" Yao Xiangjuan asked first. Zhuan came back to his senses and looked at Yao Xiangjuan blankly. He then shook his head and smiled apologetically. "It's nothing. I was just thinking about something." Yao Xiangjuan nodded and didn't ask any more questions. Turning his head, Zhuowen's gaze became serious. He was indeed thinking about something, and what he was thinking about was the blood-red planet. The moment he entered the blood-red planet, his blood and qi suddenly boiled. Although it only lasted for a short while, it still caused Zhuowen quite a lot of internal injuries. He also found that the Zhurong, Gomang, and Huda parasites that had merged into his body all throbbed at that moment and let out muffled cries. Zhuan could hear that the cries of the 3 parasites contained a trace of grief and sorrow. The only thing that can cause such a reaction from the 3 parasites is probably the Gonggong parasite. It seems that Gonggong's corpse isn't far from here. Zhuan thought. The three of them walked for about 10 days and finally arrived at a very large rift valley. The rocks around the rift valley were all blood red, as if the blood on the rocks had dried up. Jiang Qixing stopped at the entrance of the rift valley. To be more precise, he was blocked at the entrance. At the entrance of the rift valley, a colorful barrier blocked the path of Jiang Qixing and the other two. Zhuowen raised his head and looked at the barrier at the entrance. He could tell at a glance that this was a creator-level defensive formation called the Yellow Springs Divine Formation. It was quite powerful. At the very least, an ordinary creator-level formation wouldn't be able to break it. Of course, if Zhuowen wanted to, he could easily do so. Although he had just become a Genesis Stage Divine Array Master, he had also mastered Hong Meng Wuji, which specialized in breaking array formations. This made his ability to break array formations far superior to other Divine Array Masters. However, he didn't do so. Since there was a Genesis grade formation here, the Yi Qi tunnel that Jiang Qixing had mentioned and the rendezvous point that Zhongli Haoyan had mentioned should be here. Jiang Qixing took out a communication jade talisman and sent a message. A group of people walked out of the Rift Valley, led by a beautiful woman. The most distinctive feature of this woman was the faint blue star in the middle of her forehead, which constantly flickered with starlight. Behind the woman was a group of people, all wearing uniforms with starlight embroidered on them. Clearly, they were from the same faction, and this woman was the leader of this group. Xingjing, I didn't expect you to arrive earlier than me. The moment Jiang Qixing saw the woman, his eyes lit up and he chuckled. At the same time, Jiang Qixing introduced the woman to Zhuowen and Yao Xiangjuan behind him. Zhuowen just nodded. He was no stranger to Xingjing. She was also one of the 5 great prodigies of the host region and the most outstanding genius of the Fallen Mountain. He had met her in the 10 Extremes Yin Corps sect. Xingjing didn't care about Zhuowen and Yao Xiangjuan behind Jiang Qixing. Instead, she asked in surprise, "Brother Jiang, where are the others from the sun-chasing temple? Why didn't I see them?" Jiang Qixing looked embarrassed, but there was a hint of anger in his eyes. Xingjing sensed that something was wrong and continued to ask, "Did something happen?" Jiang Qixing sighed and said, "AI, it's a long story. My senior and junior brothers were all killed by Yi Hanfei's group. I'm the only one left. If it wasn't for Brother Long's help, I'm afraid I would have died." "Oh, is this the person who saved you from Yi Hanfei?" Xingjing's beautiful eyes were filled with surprise. She finally began to look at the scarred youth behind Jiang Qixing, but soon, she furrowed her brows. She found that the scarred youth's aura was too weak. He was only the Lord of Profound Secrets. The Lord of Profound Secrets was only the second major realm of the second step of Dao validation. He was much weaker than an eternal overlord. Such a cultivation level might be considered decent among ordinary cultivators, but in front of the top geniuses of Dao palaces, it wasn't enough. Xingjing looked away and didn't say anything, but the contempt in her eyes didn't escape Zhuowen's eyes. He knew that Xingjing didn't believe Jiang Qixing's words. She didn't think he could save Jiang Qixing from Yi Hanfei. Zhuowen shrugged helplessly. It seemed that his cultivation level was really too low. It was easy for others to look down on him. However, he didn't care. It was enough for him to know his own strength. There was no need to publicize it. It would be disadvantageous to him. "Brother Jiang, come in first. Also, let me remind you that Yi Hanfei arrived here before you. If he really is targeting you, you should be careful. After all, he's a genius second only to Yi Qidong and Zhongli Haoyan." Xingjing took out a token. After opening the Great Array, he specially reminded Jiang Qixing. Jiang Qixing cupped his fists at Xingjing and expressed his gratitude, then followed her into the depths of the valley. About a few miles away from the mouth of the valley, there was a large open space. In the open space, a group of people had gathered, but this group of people was clearly divided into 2 camps. After Zhuowen and the others walked in, they realized that the 2 groups were the human race and the other race. After Xingjing arrived, he immediately attracted the attention of many people in the open space. Even the foreign races cast their gazes over. Zhuowen saw Zhongli Haoyan, Yi Qidong, and Yi Hanfei among the humans. The 3 of them were clearly the leaders of the human juniors. They sat at the front of the group and occupied the best seats. Zhongli Haoyan, Yi Qidong, and Yi Hanfei also looked over. Yi Qidong took a step forward and arrived in front of Xing Jing and the others. Junior sister Xing Jing, thank you for your hard work. Yi Qidong expressed his gratitude to Xing Jing meticulously. Then he looked at Jiang Qixing and patted the latter's shoulder. Brother Jiang, you're finally here. We were just waiting for you. Xing Jing's beautiful eyes flashed with a trace of shyness, but it disappeared in a flash. Jiang Qixing nodded and looked at the human camp. He discovered that the 5 great monsters of the host territory were all here except for Ghost Plume. Chapter 2978. The Abyssy Hanfei also saw Jiang Qixing and the others, but he didn't look at Jiang Qixing. Instead, he looked at Zhuan behind Jiang Qixing, his eyes full of fear. In the previous battle, his face had been smashed by this kid, and it had taken him a lot of time to recover. It could be said that Yi Hanfei hated Zhuan to the bone. However, he was also full of fear. He knew that Long Wen was very strong, and it was best not to provoke him. Yi Qixing also felt Jiang Qixing and Yi Hanfei's gazes, and asked Jiang Qixing, Brother Jiang, what's wrong? Jiang Qixing shook his head. Nothing, just a small matter. Yi Qixing didn't ask any more questions. Instead, he led Jiang Qixing to the human camp and gave him a good seat. However, to Yi Qixing's surprise, Jiang Qixing didn't sit there. Instead, he gave it to the scarred youth beside him, whose cultivation base was only at the profound secrets masters. Brother Yi, he's called Long Wen. He's my savior, so he should sit first, Jiang Qixing explained. Yi Qixing made an "oh" sound and didn't say anything else. Instead, he chose 2 other seats and arranged for Jiang Qixing and Yao Xiangjuan to sit. The instant Zhuan sat down, he felt a fiery gaze land on his body. He turned around and found that the gaze came from the other side of the territory. He saw a very tall merman staring at him. When he saw Zhuan turn around, the merman grinned cruelly. Moses! Zhuan narrowed his eyes. This merman was the new merman genius sent after Sauron's death. He was also the most outstanding genius of the merman race, and was much more impressive than Sauron. Moses had been very unfriendly to him at the Gate of Darkness, and now he didn't hide the malice in his eyes at all. He knew that as long as Moses had the chance, he would definitely attack him without any mercy. At the same time, he also noticed a gaze from the other races staring at him. The owner of this gaze was the Saintess of the Phoenix people. Zhuan turned around and locked eyes with the Saintess of the Phoenix people. His gaze was cold and gloomy. He had already confirmed that the Saintess of the Phoenix people was not Mu Chenxue, so he naturally would not be nice to this woman. Furthermore, he could tell that the Saintess of the Phoenix people was looking at him with a hint of malice. Thinking about the cooperation between the Phoenix people and the Merfolk race, he knew that the reason why the Phoenix people's Saintess targeted him was probably because of the Merfolk elder Mda. Zhuan retracted his gaze and sneered in his heart. If these 2 people really intended to attack him, then he, Zhuan, would not mind revealing his trump card and fighting with them. Especially the Saintess of the Phoenix people. If he could capture her alive, then he could ask her about Mu Chenxue. All right, Saintess, Moses, the elites of our human race are all here. Is it the same for the other races? Zhongli Haoyan stood up and looked at the Phoenix people's Saintess and Moses. She asked indifferently. Moses did not speak and instead took the initiative to follow behind the Saintess of the Phoenix people. Clearly, he was following the Saintess' lead. The Phoenix people's Saintess smiled faintly and said, We of the other races have been here for a long time. We have been waiting for you humans. Since you humans are all here, then bring us to that place. I'd like to see what exactly the powerful exotic beasts you speak of look like. When you see it, you will definitely not be disappointed. Instead, you will feel despair. Zhongli Haoyan sneered and replied. She then led Yi Qidong and the others to the deepest part of the Rift Valley. The Phoenix people's Saintess did not care about Zhongli Haoyan's attitude. She gave an order and led the other races to follow. In the process of going deeper into the Rift Valley, the human and foreign races teams did not go one after the other. Instead, they went forward side by side. This was Zhongli Haoyan's request. She obviously did not trust the other races. Naturally, she would not let the other races' team follow behind the human race team and leave the younger generation to the other races. Although Moses was unhappy, the Phoenix people's scientist did not say anything, so he did not flare up. Zhuan followed in the middle of the human race team. As they moved forward, he silently observed the environment around the Rift Valley. His gaze became serious. He found that the deeper they went into the Rift Valley, the more he found the skeletons of all kinds of creatures on both sides of the Rift Valley. Most of them should belong to the human race. Of course, there were also human skeletons. And the deeper they went, the more skeletons there were. In addition, the smell of blood in the air was getting thicker and thicker. At the same time, it was accompanied by a strange sense of oppression. This sense of oppression came from a mysterious place in the depths of the Rift Valley. It was as if there was a pair of eyes filled with brutality watching them from that place. "Brother Jiang, do you know anything about the strange beast at the exit?" Zhuan asked Jiang Qixing in a low voice. Jiang Qixing's gaze was serious. He lowered his voice and said, "I don't know much. Brother Yi only gave me a rough idea. It is said that this strange beast is related to that Gong Gong and has monstrous strength." Back then, Brother Yi and Zhongli Haoyan entered that place together and accidentally discovered that strange beast. In just one encounter, the two of them were injured. The two of them did not stay for long and immediately left that place. Zhuowen's pupils shrank. Zhongli Haoyan and Yi Qixing were the two most outstanding geniuses of the human race. The two of them could take down an ordinary creation lord if they joined forces. But when they encountered that strange beast, they were injured in one encounter. How terrifying was that strange beast? Thinking of this, Zhuan looked around at everyone and couldn't help but shake his head. If that strange beast was really so terrifying, then they wouldn't be able to defeat it even if they joined forces. Wasn't that just courting death? Jiang Qixing also saw the worry on Zhuowen's face and continued, "Brother Long, you should be worried that the strange beast is so powerful that we might not be its match even with so many of us." Zhuowen nodded and didn't say anything. He just looked at Jiang Qixing. He knew that Jiang Qixing still had some information that he hadn't revealed to him. Jiang Qixing said solemnly, "That strange beast is indeed powerful. Even if we join forces with other races, we might not be able to defeat it. However, that strange beast is sealed at the exit. As long as we don't get too close to the exit, it won't be able to do anything to us. In fact, we don't need to defeat the strange beast. We just need to delay it for a period of time and then leave that exit." Zhuan revealed a look of understanding. So that was how it was. Now that made sense. If the strange beast was really so powerful and there were no restrictions, then Yi Qixing and Zhongli Haoyan probably wouldn't have been able to escape. Half a day later, the group reached the end of the Rift Valley. In front of them was a bottomless abyss. Chapter 2979. Exotic Beast. The moment Zhuan felt the cold air, he trembled slightly, as if all the blood in his body had frozen. "This isn't normal cold air, right?" Zhuan's expression was solemn. The others' expressions also changed slightly. Some of the weaker ones rubbed their hands like mortals, trying to use this to warm themselves. The Phoenix people's saintess frowned slightly. She had the Phoenix bloodline and was born with the fire attribute. Naturally, she didn't like this kind of cold environment. "Don't tell me the exit is in this abyss?" The Phoenix people's saintess frowned. Zhongli Haoyan's beautiful eyes were serious. She raised her arm and signaled the human team behind her to stop. "You guessed right. The exit is at the bottom of this abyss. Brother Yi and I have checked before. We can confirm it," Zhongli Haoyan said. "However, there is a very powerful exotic beast at the bottom of this abyss. Brother Yi and I worked together to exchange a few blows with it. We barely made it out alive and almost died," Zhongli Haoyan said. "You and Yi Qidong worked together and almost died." The Phoenix people's saintess and Moses both revealed shocked expressions. Zhongli Haoyan and Yi Qidong were very famous in the human race. The two of them had heard of them and knew that their strength far surpassed their peers. The two of them almost died even when working together. How powerful was that exotic beast? "You sent us here to die, right?" Moses said with a gloomy expression. Hee, that's not it. Although that exotic beast is powerful, it is sealed at the exit at the bottom of the abyss. It can only stay there and can't leave. We will work together to attack it from afar and exhaust it to death. Yi Qi-dong said calmly. Hearing this, the Phoenix people's Saintess and Moses both revealed relieved expressions. They couldn't deal with powerful exotic beasts, but if it was sealed and couldn't move, it wouldn't be difficult to deal with it. No need to talk nonsense. Let's go down. After Zhongli Hao Yen finished speaking, she jumped down first and disappeared in front of everyone's eyes. Yi Qi-dong, Yi Han-fei, and the others also jumped into the abyss. Let's go too. The Phoenix people's Saintess's beautiful eyes were calm as she led the team down. Brother Long, junior sister Yao, let's go down too. Seeing everyone enter the abyss, Jiang Qixing was also eager to give it a try. He greeted Zhuowen and Yao Xiangjuan, and the three of them also entered the abyss. The moment he entered the abyss, Zhuowen discovered that the cold air inside was much stronger than outside. When the cold air brushed past his body, he felt a bone-piercing pain. It was as if the cold air had penetrated his skin and entered the depths of his bones. Fortunately, he had cultivated the Pangu's sacred body, which gave him a strong physique. He did not need to use the power of the Way of the Heavens to resist the invasion of the cold air. On the other hand, Yao Xiangjuan and Jiang Qixing both used their heavenly Dao power to create energy cloaks around their bodies to resist the invasion of the cold qi. The abyss was very deep. Even after falling for 3 days and 3 nights, they still hadn't reached the end. During this period, many cultivators began to use heavenly Dao origin crystals to replenish their energy due to their lack of energy. Even Yao Xiangjuan and Jiang Qixing were pale. They had no choice but to use heavenly Dao origin crystals to replenish their energy. However, the top geniuses like Zhongli Hao Yen, Yi Qixing, and the Phoenix people's Saintess, who had been leading the way, were still breathing steadily. It was as if they were not affected too much. A day later, everyone finally reached the bottom of the abyss. The bottom of the abyss was very large. Around them and under their feet, it was all frozen ice. What was more amazing was that the ice shone with a crystal-clear green light. The moment Zhuowen landed on the ground, he noticed that there was a thick and translucent icicle in front of the ice. The icicle looked very rough and irregular. However, the surface of the icicle shone with dense green lines. These lines were like the veins of a human body. Zhongli Hao Yen and Yi Qixing silently stopped in front of the icicle. Their eyes were full of seriousness. The Phoenix people's Saintess and Moses also came in front of the icicle. Moses's eyes flashed as he asked, "What is this icicle?" "This is the formation base that sealed the exotic beast. The exotic beast is behind this icicle. As long as we stay near the icicle, the exotic beast won't be able to do anything to us," Yi Qixing said. As soon as he said this, both the humans and the foreign races looked behind the icicle. They found that there was only darkness behind the icicle. They were all puzzled. In the group, Zhuowen's eyes became very serious. The moment he entered the bottom, he had already used his divine sense to scan the surroundings. He had indeed found a creature behind the icicle. To be more precise, the darkness behind the icicle was that creature. If his divine sense had not been tempered by the Panga banner, he really would have thought that it was just darkness. Who would have thought that the darkness was actually the creature sealed behind the icicle? At the same time, Zhuowen finally understood why Zhongli Hao Yen and Yi Qixing had been so heavily injured. After all, there was a seal here. As long as the two of them were careful, they wouldn't have been attacked by the creature. The two of them probably didn't know that there was a seal here. They also didn't know that the darkness behind the icicle was the creature's body. Therefore, they unknowingly entered the darkness and were attacked by the creature. The Phoenix people's Saintess and Moses were also surprised. They looked at the darkness in front of them and were even more puzzled. They had also used their divine sense to check, but other than the darkness behind the icicle, there was nothing else. There wasn't any exotic beast. Zhongli Hao Yen sneered and didn't continue to explain. Instead, she formed a palm and suddenly blasted it out. A palm formed by white light instantly blasted behind the icicle. "Ci." The moment the palm blasted into the darkness, it actually froze as if it was blocked by something. Then, the palm dissipated. This darkness is a bit strange. The Phoenix People's saintess eyes were quite sharp. She immediately saw that there was something wrong with the darkness behind the icicle. Moses's eyes were also very serious. However, the other cultivators behind them were still confused. What's going on? Could it be that the exotic beast guarding the exit is invisible? Jiang Qixing asked in puzzlement. Yao Xiangjuan's beautiful eyes were also filled with confusion. They clearly didn't see the truth behind the icicle. That darkness is the exotic beast's body that Zhongli Haoyan and the others mentioned. Zhuan whispered to the two of them. Jiang Qixing and Yao Xiangjuan were both shocked and looked at the darkness in disbelief. They really didn't suspect the darkness. More accurately, when they entered this place, they ignored the darkness from the beginning. They didn't even think about it. As expected of the saintess. It seems that you saw through it. Yi Qixing said with a faint smile. The Phoenix People's saintess' beautiful eyes were serious. She stretched out her hand and fiddled with her slender fingers. Suddenly, a terrifying and blazing flame lingered in her palm. This flame formed a rotating ring. Whoosh! Chapter 2980. Join hands. The moment the flaming ring blasted into the darkness, it suddenly exploded, forming a terrifying wave of fire that wreaked havoc. The terrifying temperature spread, causing many of the surrounding cultivators to involuntarily feel their faces turn red. Their cheeks were boiling hot as they retreated. At the same time, an earth-shattering shriek came from the darkness. Then, the darkness began to shake violently, sometimes to the left and sometimes to the right. The hissing sound became louder and louder as the darkness swayed. Zhuowen could hear a monstrous anger from the roar. Many people in the human and foreign race teams also realized that something was wrong. They all stared at the swaying darkness, knowing that it was unusual. It can't be. Is this darkness really an exotic beast? This is the first time I've seen such a strange creature. Jiang Qixing was dumbfounded and couldn't help but mutter. Jiang Qixing wasn't the only one who was dumbfounded. Other than Zhuowen, everyone else in the team was stunned. Clearly, they didn't expect this darkness to really be some kind of creature. Bang, bang, bang. The mass of darkness suddenly rushed toward the Phoenix People's saintess and Zhongli Haoyan. It was very fast, but when it reached the ice pillar, an invisible barrier seemed to appear. The mass of darkness directly hit the barrier. The powerful impact caused the surrounding ground to shake violently, as if the earth was about to split open. The mass of darkness hit the ice pillar's barrier while roaring loudly, its voice filled with violence and anger. At this moment, the mass of darkness finally revealed its true appearance. It was a creature that looked like a huge hunting dog. Its entire body was covered in sharp scales, and its eyes were filled with blood-red blood. The creature was very large, dozens of feet tall, but it was surrounded by a strange black gas. The black gas was probably a kind of camouflage. When the creature was motionless, the creature shrouded in the black gas was no different from an ordinary shadow. If one didn't look carefully, they wouldn't be able to tell the difference between the creature and a shadow. Back then, Yi Qidong and Zhongli Haoyan were deceived by this creature's disguise. They thought it was just an ordinary shadow, so they directly went behind the ice pillar. As a result, they were attacked by this creature. If it weren't for their strength, they would have been left here even if they reacted in time. What a strange creature. Its camouflage ability is so strange. If it weren't for the two of you, I wouldn't have been able to see through its camouflage. The Phoenix People's saintess also had some lingering fears. It's natural that the Holy Maiden couldn't see through this bastard's disguise. Back then, we were also deceived by this bastard and paid a heavy price. Yi Qidong said with a bitter smile. Next, let's join forces to attack. This beast is not simple. If we fight it alone, none of us will be its opponent. The Phoenix People's saintess said as she looked at the roaring dark creatures. We'll organize the human teams. As for the non-human teams, you can organize them. Zhongli Haoyan nodded. She returned to the human team with Yi Qidong and began to plan their next strategy. On the other hand, The Phoenix people's Saintus and Moses naturally returned to their tribe and began to methodically assign tasks to the others. Everyone, what we need to do next is to work together to defeat the beast sealed within this seal. However, I'll say this first. This beast's strength is very terrifying. Even if Hao Yen and I join forces, we won't be its opponent. So, when we attack this beast, we must use long-range attacks outside the ice pillars. Don't try to step into the ice pillars. Otherwise, you'll die without a doubt. Remember this. Yi Qidong's gaze was very serious. He began to arrange for everyone to stand neatly on one side. On the other side, the Phoenix people's Saintus and Moses arranged for the non-human teams to form a line. Everyone start attacking. Use all the long-range attacks you can use. As soon as Zhongli Hao Yen gave the order, everyone on the side of the human race immediately launched their own attacks. In an instant, colorful attacks flew out one after another. They were like dazzling neon lights that fell into the darkness in front of them. Bang, bang, bang. Countless sparks exploded. These attacks all landed on the body of the dark creature. The dark creature roared angrily and began to attack the seal outside with all its might. The entire area shook like a terrifying earthquake. After the human side launched their own attacks, the non-human side was also ready to attack. They used all the long-range attacks they could. The powerful attacks landed on the dark creature's body, causing the sparks on its body to become even more intense and concentrated. The dark creature roared in pain as it desperately slammed into the seal on the ice pillar. However, it was to no avail. The seal on the ice pillar was originally targeted at it. No matter how it struggled or slammed into the ice pillar, the final result would not change. Everyone's attacks became fiercer and fiercer, like dazzling fireworks during a festival. On the other hand, the dark creature realized that its efforts were futile. It retreated and dodged the oncoming attacks. Unfortunately, the combined attacks of the humans and non-human teams were too concentrated. The dark creature could only dodge a small portion of the attacks. The majority of the attacks still landed on its body. Time continued to pass. The humans and non-humans continued to attack without any regard for their lives. When the energy in their bodies was depleted, Yi Qidong and Zhongli Hao Yen would take out many heavenly Tao origin crystals for everyone to use. The dark creature constantly dodged, but as time passed, the number of times it dodged decreased. Its movements became sluggish, and cherry-red blood even flowed out of its body. Seeing the dark creature in such a state, everyone became excited. They knew that the dark creature was beginning to get injured. The situation would probably get worse and worse. To them, it was naturally becoming more and more advantageous. Everyone work harder. This beast is about to die. As long as we kill this beast, we'll be able to leave this strange world. Yi Qidong shouted. As soon as Yi Qidong said this, everyone became excited. It was as if they had all been injected with chicken blood, and they all launched their attacks without any regard for their lives. The non-human side was the same. They were all fighting with their lives on the line. The dark creature roared at the sky, its voice filled with resentment and unwillingness. It was filled with hatred. If it were not for the seal, it would be able to destroy these ant-like fellows with a wave of its hand. But now it was sealed, and it could only allow these ants to exhaust it to death with all kinds of attacks. This death was really too sullen. Chapter 2981. Suspended animation. Phew. Seeing the creature of darkness finally fall, everyone subconsciously let out a sigh of relief. The creature of darkness had given them a lot of pressure. Although they had been outside the seal the entire time, the terrifying commotion from the creature of darkness striking the seal as well as the terrifying presence it released made many of them feel extremely pressured. They all knew that this was an extremely terrifying creature. They could not face it head-on, or they would either die or be heavily injured. Yi Qidong and Zhongli Hao Yen looked at each other, revealing a relaxed smile. The exit is behind the creature. We've already investigated it before, so we know that there's a cave behind it. The cave contains the presence of heavenly way energy, so it must be the exit to leave this world. Zhongli Hao Yen pointed behind the creature of darkness. There was indeed a cave there, but it was very inconspicuous. It was only as tall as a person, and it was pitch black and bottomless. Zhuan's gaze also landed on the cave. He had indeed sensed the presence of heavenly way energy in the cave. He was not the only one. Everyone else sensed it as well, and they all became excited. Then what are we waiting for? Let's go. Yi Hanfei took the lead, rushing towards the cave. With Yi Hanfei taking the lead, Zhongli Haoyan Yi Qidong and the others all entered behind the icicle. The foreign races were not to be outdone either. They entered at basically the same time as the human group. Zhuan followed behind. His divine sense landed on the creature of darkness without leaving a trace. Only after confirming that the creature of darkness was truly dead did his expression relax slightly. However, he still maintained a sliver of vigilance. The creature of darkness camouflage ability was the most powerful and bizarre that Zhuan had ever seen. It was not impossible for it to enter a state of suspended animation. Yi Hanfei was the first to arrive before the cave. He smiled, thinking that he could finally leave this crappy place. As long as he could leave this crappy place, he would be able to use some of his trump cards. At that time, he would seek revenge on Longwen. Just as Yi Hanfei was daydreaming, he felt a gust of wind whistling in his ears the moment he stepped into the cave. Yi Hanfei's expression changed slightly. Soon after, he realized that a huge black tail was swinging towards him from his left. It was so fast that it seemed to have surpassed the speed of light. Yi Hanfei roared. He gathered all the heavenly Tao energy in his body and raised his arms to block in front of him. The black tail was too fast for him to dodge. He could only raise his hand to defend himself. Bang! The black tail slammed into Yi Hanfei's arms, and the sound of bones cracking rang out. At the same time, Yi Hanfei screamed miserably and was sent flying, crashing into the ground not far away. This sudden turn of events stunned everyone who was advancing. When they saw Yi Hanfei's miserable appearance and saw the black tail that suddenly attacked, they felt a chill in their hearts. Zhongli Haoyan and Yi Qidong reacted the fastest. They immediately looked towards the corpse of the dark creature and saw that the corpse of the dark creature began to sway. Then, under everyone's gazes, it stood up. How is that possible? This exotic beast isn't dead? Impossible. I used my divine sense to investigate. This exotic beast's divine sense has clearly been destroyed. How can it still be alive? Everyone was stunned. Their faces were filled with disbelief. While everyone was still in shock, the Phoenix people Saintus and Moses suddenly took a step forward. Their speed soared, and they turned into black lightning. Their destination was the cave in front of them. Clearly, when the two found out that the exotic beast wasn't dead, their first thought was to leave this place. They didn't dare to stay here any longer. Everyone run for your lives. We can't stay here for long. Zhongli Haoyan and Yi Qidong's expressions were ugly. After giving out their orders, they also used their movement techniques and rushed towards the cave. The black creature was covered in wounds. Blood kept flowing out of its body, and it was in an extremely sorry state. However, its violent aura made everyone tremble in fear. The black creature was very angry now, and the consequences were very serious. It was determined to kill everyone here and not let anyone escape. Seeing that the Phoenix people's Saintus and Moses had reached the entrance of the cave, the black creature suddenly disappeared. When it reappeared, it was already at the entrance of the cave, blocking in front of the Saintus and Moses. Boom! At the same time, the black creature raised its right claw and slammed it towards the Saintus and Moses. In fact, its aura was so powerful that it caused the air to explode. The Phoenix people's Saintus and Moses's expressions changed drastically. Although the black creature was seriously injured, the power of its claw was very terrifying. They didn't dare to be careless. The Phoenix people's Saintus shouted. Her pair of crystal white hands formed a complicated seal. Then, a phoenix tattoo appeared between her eyebrows. The strange thing was that this phoenix tattoo was black. The tattoo became brighter and brighter, and finally, a turbulent black flame burst out. As soon as the black flame appeared, it condensed into a black phoenix in the air. With a loud cry, the black phoenix spread its wings and flew towards the creature of darkness. Bang! The dark creature's right claw landed on the black phoenix. Then, The claw froze for a moment. It was actually blocked by the black phoenix. The saintess's face was slightly pale. Obviously, using this move was very taxing on her. The moment she saw that the dark creature was blocked by the black phoenix, she moved like lightning and bypassed the dark creature. Then, she quickly rushed into the cave behind the dark creature. The moment the Phoenix People's saintess entered the cave, Moses followed closely behind. However, at this moment, the dark creature roared and tore the black phoenix into pieces with its claw. It collapsed into countless black flames. The dark creature was very angry. Its right claw didn't reduce in power and slammed towards Moses. Moses's expression changed drastically. All the scales on his body suddenly stood up, and then a thick white fog was released. Then he punched out and hit the dark creature's right claw. Moses's right hand was torn apart, but he managed to block the dark creature's attack. At this moment, he immediately rushed into the cave. However, before the dark creature rushed into the cave, two figures took advantage of the time that Moses bought and successfully rushed into the cave. Moses also saw the true faces of the two figures. They were the humans, Zhongli Hao Yen and Yi Qidong. Moses almost coughed up a mouthful of blood. He had made a dowry for the two of them. Although he was extremely depressed, Moses also knew that the situation was critical. He took the lead and rushed into the cave. Boom! The dark creature's attack missed, and it was very angry. It originally wanted to kill everyone, but it didn't expect that 4 people would break into the cave one after another. Chapter 2982. Suppression Whoosh. Whoosh, whoosh. The dark creature no longer hesitated and suddenly rushed into the group of humans and foreign races. It waved its claws and showed no mercy. For a moment, there were miserable screams from the group. Blood splattered and gathered on the ground to form a bloody stream. Zhuan looked gravely at the dark creature that was wreaking havoc in the group. His gaze fell on the cave behind the dark creature, and his face suddenly turned ugly. This was because he found that the cave entrance had been destroyed. Obviously, it was the work of the dark creature. The escape of the 4 of them had infuriated the dark creature, so it wasn't strange for it to do something so outrageous. Zhuan was a little hesitant. If he was alone, he was confident that he could block the dark creature's attack, then go to the cave, smash the rocks in front of it, and enter the cave. But now that Jiang Qixing and Yao Xiangjuan were beside him, he could not leave them behind and enter the cave alone. Longwen, you go in alone. Brother Jiang and I will retreat outside the seal first. Yao Xiangjuan suddenly said. Her bright eyes stared at Zhuan as if she had seen through Zhuowen's thoughts. Junior sister Yao is right. Brother Long, you don't have to worry about us. Go in first. Jiang Qixing also nodded. He knew how powerful this scarred young man was and knew that with his strength, it would not be a problem for him to bypass the dark creature's attack and enter the cave. No need. I'll block the dark creature. You guys take the opportunity to enter the cave. Zhuan shook his head and did not wait for Yao Xiangjuan and Jiang Qixing to continue speaking. He took a step forward and rushed toward the dark creature. At this moment, the dark creature's right claw was like lightning. It had just blasted a foreign race into pieces and was about to kill another human when Zhuan arrived in front of it. Boom! Zhuan put his palms together and his body emitted a crystal-clear light. He then punched out and hit the dark creature's right claw. The dark creature narrowed its lantern-sized eyes in anger when it realized that a human ant had taken the initiative to attack. It wanted to kill this human ant who dared to provoke it. Bang! Zhuowen's fist landed on the dark creature's right claw, creating a terrifying explosion. A terrifying shockwave swept out, blowing Zhuowen's shoulder-length hair up to his shoulders. Zhuan felt a strong pressure crushing his fist and spreading into his body, making him feel unbearable. At this moment, Zhuan had a bad feeling because he realized that there was a big gap between him and the dark creature. Their strength difference was too great. Zhuowen crazily mobilized the power of the Pangu sacred body, trying to block the right claw of the dark creature. However, he found that his right hand was getting heavier and heavier, as if it was really pressing down on a mountain. Suddenly, the dark creature in front of him seemed to be panicking Transin. Its right transen suddenly, the dark creature's transen its right claw. Zhuowen's transens. This scene immediately stunned all of the humans and foreign races present. They had personally experienced the power of the dark creatures. Even peerless geniuses like the Phoenix people's Saintus and Moses could barely block the dark creature's attack. However, this guy had directly neutralized the dark creature's attack. Wasn't this a little too exaggerated? Junior Marshal Sister Yao, Brother Jiang. What are you waiting for? Hurry up and rush over. Although Zhuowen was surprised by the sudden weakening of the dark creature, he knew that he needed to get down to business. Therefore, when he saw that Yao Xiangjuan and Jiang Qixing were still in a daze, he couldn't help but shout. Yao Xiangjuan and Jiang Qixing were also shocked by Zhuowen's attack, so they stood rooted to the ground. Now that they were shouted at by Zhuowen, the two of them instantly sobered up and realized the severity of the matter. They didn't delay any longer and transformed into two bolts of lightning that flashed towards the cave. The moment Yao Xiangjuan and Jiang Qixing left, the eyes of the other outsiders and humans flashed as they followed them without hesitation. They finally understood that the scarred young man had attacked to buy time for his friends. Therefore, this was the best time for them to enter the cave. Naturally, they wouldn't waste such a great opportunity. Zhuowen naturally noticed the people following Yao Xiangjuan and Jiang Qixing, intending to take advantage of the situation. However, he didn't say anything. Anyway, his goal was to buy time for Yao Xiangjuan and Jiang Qixing. If the others were lucky enough to follow them in, it would be because they were smart. The dark creature was enraged. He stomped his hind legs and dashed out like a bolt of lightning toward Zhuowen with a strong momentum. Zhuowen wasn't afraid at all. He even used the sky-splitting blade esoteric meaning. He held a long white blade in each hand and slashed at the dark creature. What surprised Zhuowen was that the moment he used the sky-splitting blade esoteric meaning, the dark creature's eyes revealed a look of fear. Moreover, its power had been weakened a lot. It didn't have the momentum and power it had when it first faced the Phoenix people's Saintus and the others. Zhuowen held the sky-splitting blade esoteric meaning and easily blasted the dark creature away, causing it to crash to the ground. The dark creature struggled to stand up. It looked at Zhuowen with some fear in its eyes. It paced back and forth on the spot, roaring at Zhuowen. However, it didn't dare to attack again. The Pangu's sacred body has a suppressive effect on this guy? Zhuowen's eyes lit up as he thought of the physique of his clone. To be more precise, he felt that the three ancestral wizard worms of the Pangu's sacred body had an absolute suppressive effect on this dark creature. If he guessed correctly, this dark creature should be a creature that was kept in captivity by the ancestral wizard Gonggong when he was alive. Therefore, the dark creature was very sensitive to the aura of the ancestral wizard. Zhuowen deliberately concealed the aura of the ancestral wizard on his body at first, so the dark creature didn't notice it. However, when Zhuowen unleashed the power of the Pangu's sacred body, the dark creature immediately felt the aura of the ancestral wizard. It was also suppressed and feared by the aura of the ancestral wizard. This was also the reason why Zhuowen could defeat this dark creature so easily. At this moment, Jiang Qixing and Yao Xiangjuan, with the help of the others, had blasted open the sealed cave, revealing the dark entrance inside. Yao Xiangjuan and Jiang Qixing stopped at the entrance of the cave, ignoring the humans and aliens who swarmed in. Instead, they turned around and looked at Zhuowen worriedly. Although Zhuowen's great power had surprised the two of them, they still didn't think that Zhuowen would be a match for this dark creature. However, when their gazes landed on Zhuowen, their jaws almost dropped to the ground. Their eyes were filled with disbelief. Chapter 2983. SS Entanglement. Zhuowen didn't leave the cave immediately. Instead, he stood in place and stared at the dark creature with a grave expression. He realized that while the dark creature's eyes were filled with fear, there was also a hint of greed in the dark creature's eyes. Moreover, the dark creature's aura had completely locked onto him. If he immediately rushed toward the cave, the dark creature would definitely stop him. Zhuowen glanced at the many human clan and foreign clan cultivators swarming into the cave. Then he saw Yao Xiangjuan and Jiang Qixing standing at the entrance of the cave and looking at him. Brother Jiang, junior sister Yao, you guys leave first. I'll be there soon. Zhuan transmitted his voice to Yao Xiangjuan and Jiang Qixing. Jiang Qixing and Yao Xiangjuan hesitated, but in the end, they nodded. In fact, when they saw that the dark creature was suppressed by Zhuan, they knew that it couldn't do anything to Zhuan. Be careful. Just as Jiang Qixing and Yao Xiangjuan were about to turn around and enter the cave, Zhuan's anxious voice suddenly sounded. The two were stunned at first, then they felt a strong gust of wind whistling from behind them. Their reaction wasn't slow. They immediately turned around, stirred up the heavenly energy in their bodies, and put their hands in front of them in a defensive posture. Bang! The gust of wind whistled, and the two immediately felt pain in their arms. They were involuntarily sent flying by a force. Blood spurted out, and they were in an extremely sorry state. The two struggled to open their eyes in midair, and only then did they see the true face of the person who attacked them from behind. Yi Hanfei. When Yao Xiangjuan and Jiang Qixing saw the true face of the person who attacked them, they were shocked. They never thought that it would be a human clan cultivator who attacked them. The two of you stay here. This dark creature is enough to make you suffer. As for that little bastard Long One, if he can come out alive, I'll wait for him on the other side and take his dog life. Yi Hanfei sneered. He glanced at Jiang Qixing and Yao Xiangjuan, then turned his gaze to Zhuan. His eyes were filled with provocation and disdain. Zhuan's eyes were cold, but his heart was filled with killing intent. This Yi Hanfei really didn't know what was good for him. Even at this time, he still dared to provoke him. Although Zhuan could still catch up with Yi Hanfei, he had to take care of Jiang Qixing and Yao Xiangjuan. Yi Hanfei was very sinister. He had sent Jiang Qixing and Yao Xiangjuan flying in the direction of the dark creatures. The intelligence of the darkness creature wasn't low. It could tell that Yao Xiangjuan and Jiang Qixing had a good relationship with the scarred youth. It suddenly opened its bloody mouth and swallowed Jiang Qixing and Yao Xiangjuan, who were flying back. Zhuan had no choice but to give up on chasing Yi Hanfei. He could only watch as Yi Hanfei disappeared into the cave with a smug smile on his face. Zhuan then turned around and rushed towards Jiang Qixing and Yao Xiangjuan. Zhuan was very fast, but the dark creature was even faster. It arrived in front of Yao Xiangjuan and Jiang Qixing before Zhuan. It opened its bloody mouth and was about to swallow the two. Yao Xiangjuan and Jiang Qixing kept struggling, but they had consumed too much energy here and were seriously injured by Yi Hanfei's sneak attack. Their struggles were very weak in front of the dark creature. Zhuan's eyes were gloomy. He knew that he couldn't make it in time, so he grabbed the air with both hands and condensed two slender sky-splitting blades. He then swung his hands and threw the sky-splitting blades. Bush. Two white lights shot out, aiming at the dark creature's bloody mouth. The dark creature also knew that Zhuan's sky-splitting blades were unusual. Its eyes showed fear and it didn't dare to take them head-on. It took several steps back. Zhuan took advantage of the gap between the dark creature's retreat and rushed to Yao Xiangjuan and Jiang Qixing's side. He rolled up his sleeves and wrapped them up, then quickly retreated. Zhuan wanted to rush into the cave directly, but the dark creature obviously knew Zhuan's intention and blocked the entrance of the cave in advance. Although his Pangu's sacred body had a suppressive effect on the dark creature's physical body was extremely terrifying. It was even more terrifying than his 5-star peak Pangu's sacred body. Although Zhuan had beaten it up just now, Zhuan knew that the beast didn't actually suffer much injury. It was just afraid of Zhuan's Pangu's sacred body and the aura of the 3 ancestral wizard insects. Zhuan had no choice but to withdraw from the ice pillar with Jiang Qixing and Yao Xiangjuan. Brother Long, I'm sorry. We've dragged you down. Jiang Qixing said with some shame. Yao Xiangjuan also lowered her head. Her beautiful eyes were full of apology. Zhuan waved his hand and said, "It's not your fault. Yi Hanfei is too cunning and shameless. I can't believe he would do such a thing at such a time." Yao Xiangjuan's expression turned ugly. I didn't expect Yi Hanfei to be so shameless. He's the top genius of the Yin and Yang divine sect and the top genius ranked 3rd on the Starry Sky contribution list. How could he be so despicable? I've misjudged him. Yi Hanfei has always held a grudge against me for defeating him. It's not surprising that he would target me now. Zhuan shook his head. He wasn't too surprised, but Yi Hanfei had been completely blacklisted in his heart. After leaving this world, if he were to meet Yi Hanfei again, he would kill him. There's only 3 of us left. Jiang Qixing smiled bitterly. Zhuan had originally wanted to buy time for the 2 of them to leave this place. In the end, the 2 of them didn't leave this place. Instead, they allowed the other humans and foreign races to take advantage of the chaos to leave this place. This was really making a wedding dress for others. I'll do it again. Follow behind me. Once I've completely stalled this exotic beast, you can take the opportunity to enter the cave. Zhuan said and stepped into the ice pillar again. Jiang Qixing and Yao Xiangjuan exchanged a glance and followed closely behind. The moment Zhuan stepped into this place, the dark creature roared and rushed over, mercilessly attacking Zhuan's group. This beast has become so cunning. Zhuan's face turned extremely ugly because he found that the dark creature's target was no longer him, but Yao Xiangjuan and Jiang Qixing behind him. In order to protect the 2 of them, Zhuan could only constantly deal with the attacks of the dark creatures. This, in turn, increased the pressure on him. After all, he was not alone. He still had to take care of Jiang Qixing and Yao Xiangjuan, which made him feel somewhat exhausted. Chapter 2984. Cooperation Bang. Jun was forced back by the bombardment, his face slightly pale. He had to take care of 2 people at the same time, so the pressure was great. Destiny Space-Time Kill. Zhuan roared and used his newly created divine ability, Destiny Space-Time Kill. A long purple river rushed out from the void behind Zhuan and rushed straight toward the dark creature. The purple river wrapped around the dark creature, confining the space-time around it. The purple river began to bombard the dark creature's body like a meat grinder. However, the dark creature's physical body was very strong. Although it was bombarded by the purple river, blood splattered everywhere, and it was riddled with wounds, it was not destroyed by the bombardment. Instead, it forcibly withstood it, albeit in a somewhat sorry state. You 2 go first. Zhuan turned around and said to Yao Xiangjuan and Jiang Qixing, who were in a daze. Jiang Qixing and Yao Xiangjuan also knew that now was not the time to be in a daze, so they immediately flew out and entered the cave. However, the 2 did not enter the depths of the cave. Instead, they looked at Zhuan from the entrance. Jiang Qixing hurriedly said, "Brother Long, you come over quickly." Zhuan nodded and glanced at the dark creature still trapped in the purple river. He stepped out with his right foot and rushed toward the cave. However, the moment he took a step forward, the purple river collapsed. The dark creature was like a bolt of black lightning, rushing in front of Zhuan. Moreover, the dark creature was very smart. It did not directly attack Zhuan, but instead attacked Yao Xiangjuan and Jiang Qixing at the entrance of the cave. You 2 go quickly. Zhuan shouted and clenched his fists, forming 2 sky-splitting blades. He leaped up and stabbed the sky-splitting blades into the back of the dark creature. Puchi! The sky-splitting blades easily sank into the dark creature's back. Blood spurted out like a fountain, looking extremely bloody and mournful. The dark creature was furious and no longer cared about Yao Xiangjuan and Jiang Qixing. It began to shake its body frantically, trying to throw Zhuan off its back. It must kill this hateful human. He actually dared to launch a sneak attack on it. It only felt an unbearable pain on its back, as if it was on fire. Why aren't you leaving? Zhuan's eyes were calm. He held the sky-splitting blades with both hands and looked at Jiang Qixing and Yao Xiangjuan at the entrance of the cave. Although Jiang Qixing and Yao Xiangjuan were very worried about Zhuan, they knew that they should not stay here for long. After all, they were burdens for Zhu. The longer they stayed, the more Zhuan would be at a disadvantage. Brother Long will wait for you at the entrance. After saying that, Yao Xiangjuan disappeared into the cave with Jiang Qixing. After finally sending Yao Xiangjuan and Jiang Qixing away, Nguyen heaved a sigh of relief in his heart. Immediately, he narrowed his eyes and looked at the crazy dark creature below. If you're really a creature raised by Ancestor Gonggong, then I don't believe that you're not afraid of this thing. Zhuan murmured in a low voice. 3 streams of light suddenly swept out from his body. Each stream of light had a different color. They were fiery red, turquoise, and brownish yellow. These 3 streams of light were naturally the 3 types of ancestor sorcery gu insects, Zhurong, Gomang, and Hutu, which had been integrated into Zhuowen's Pangu sacred body. The 3 types of gu insects exuded a powerful aura unique to the ancestor sorcery. After sensing the aura of the ancestor sorcery from the 3 types of gu insects, the originally crazy dark creature suddenly froze. Its eyes revealed a human-like look of fear. It stopped on the side and kept roaring at the 3 types of gu insects floating in front of it. However, it did not dare to move at all. Zhuan slowly jumped down from the dark creature's back and walked to the center of the 3 types of gu insects. He looked at the dark creature in front of him with bright eyes. It seemed that his guess was right. This dark creature might really have a lot to do with ancestor sorcery Gonggong. Otherwise, it would not be so sensitive to the aura of the ancestor sorcery. Zhuowen's mind stirred. The 3 types of gu insects immediately separated into 3 directions and surrounded the dark creature in the center. Woo! The dark creature hurriedly lay on the ground, trembling. It did not even dare to look at the 3 types of gu insects surrounding it. Zhuan strode to the front of the dark creature. The dark creature hurriedly worshipped Zhuan and begged for mercy. Zhuan stood where he was. His eyes flickered and he said in a deep voice, "You should understand what I said, right? Now let me ask you, is this really the place where Gonggong fell?" Although he had some guesses about this place, he still wanted to confirm it with the dark creature. The dark creature quickly nodded and sent a spirit power to Zhuan. "Human, Lord Gonggong is my master. This is not the place where my master died. Instead, this is my master's inner world." "Your master's inner world?" Zhuowen narrowed his eyes. Recalling the moment he entered this blood-red planet, he felt that his blood was boiling. "Is this blood-red planet Gonggong's heart?" said Zhuowen in a deep voice. "And the other areas are the other parts of Gonggong's body?" The dark creature nodded and looked at Zhuowen in surprise. Apparently, it didn't think that this human could figure this out. "So, is the other end of the cave the exit of Gonggong's inner world?" Zhuowen continued asking. "That's true. Back then, my master told me to guard the exit and not let anyone in. Sadly, I failed him." The dark creature showed a shameful look and said with a muffled voice, "Then, where are the gu worms in Gonggong's body?" Zhuowen's eyes flickered and his breathing became rapid. He hurriedly asked the dark creature. The dark creature hesitated and fell silent. Obviously, it didn't want to say. "Do you think you have any other choice now? If you tell me where Gonggong's gu worms are, you might still be able to survive. Otherwise, you know the consequences," Zhuowen said in a deep voice. His Pangu sacred body had been stuck at the peak of 5 stars for a long time. As long as he got Gonggong's gu worms, he would be able to break through and become a 6-star Pangu sacred body. Once his Pangu sacred body became a 6-star Pangu sacred body, his strength would change dramatically. Ordinary creation masters might not be able to do anything to him unless they were at the peak of creation masters or above. The dark creature trembled and showed a struggling look. In the end, it sighed and said, "Even if I take you there, you can't get my master's gu worms. My master's gu worms were corroded by my master's evil thoughts when he was alive. They are completely crazy." Chapter 2985. Fury, you just need to take me to the place where the gu worm is sealed. As long as you can do that, I'll let you go," Zhuowen said. The dark creature shook his head and asked, "Can you take me out of here? I've been sealed here for too long. I've endured the loneliness for too long. I want to go out and have a look." Zhuowen sized up the darkness creature and discovered that the latter's eyes were indeed filled with a desire to leave this place. After pondering for a moment, Zhuowen nodded and said, "I can bring you away. However, you must first swear to the heavens." The dark creature quickly nodded and swore to the heavenly Tao. "You just need to break the icicle in front of you, and I'll be able to break free from this seal." The dark creature pointed at the icicle in front of him. Zhuowen didn't say anything else. He arrived before the icicle with a single step and suddenly punched out with his right fist. He smashed it against the icicle, causing him to let out a muffled groan. He was actually forced back by the mysterious energy on the icicle. There's a restriction on the surface of the icicle. Your master is really watertight. Zhuo Wen's gaze was filled with astonishment. That dark creature smiled bitterly. My master has always known that I desire freedom. He was afraid that after he died, I would leave this place and no longer protect his corpse and the origin goo worm. Thus, he used a sealing method to keep me here forever to protect him. Zhuo nodded. He didn't think there was anything wrong with what the dark creature said. Instead, he began to carefully study the restriction on the icicle. What made Zhuo speechless was that the restriction on the icicle wasn't of a high level. It was only at the Genesis level. It wasn't difficult for him to break such a restriction. It seemed that the rumor that the alien races in the untainted heavenly realm weren't good at alchemy and formations was quite reliable. Gong Gong was a powerful ancestor magus after all, but he was only able to set up a creation-level magic formation, not to mention those weaker non-humankind beings. Zhuan sat cross-legged in front of the ice pillar. With a wave of his sleeve, he summoned the beast bone formation disc. His hands formed a seal and he began to break the formation. About an hour later, a cracking sound could be heard from the surface of the icicle. Zhuan had completely broken the restriction placed on the surface of the icicle. The dark creature was dumbfounded. It didn't expect this human cultivator to be a Formation Dao divine master who was proficient in Formation Dao. He was able to break the restriction set up by its master so easily. Rumble. The moment the restriction was undone, Zhuan punched out again, easily destroying the icicle. The icicles were destroyed, and the surrounding brilliance flickered. The barrier that enveloped the dark creatures collapsed and disappeared. The dark creature's eyes were filled with ecstasy as it hurriedly thanked Zhuo Wen. "All right, now you should take me to Gong Gong's goo bugs, right?" said Zhuan coldly. The dark creature nodded, and its eyes became serious. It pointed at the cave and said, "The goo bugs are not in Master's body. They are in a dimensional world that Master created before he died. This cave should lead to that dimensional world, right?" Zhuo asked. "Now, come with me." The dark creature nodded and led Zhuo into the cave. The cave didn't look spacious from the outside, but it was very spacious inside. It was like another dimension. A chilly aura permeated the air, and Zhuowen's entire body shivered. It felt like even his bones were about to crack from the cold. The dark creature led the way meticulously, and Zhuan followed in silence. 2 hours later, the dark creature and Zhuan finally left the cave and came to the end. The moment they walked out of the cave, a bright white light shone over them. Even Zhuowen couldn't help but narrow his eyes. He looked around and found that what appeared in front of him was a dark space. The dark space was very strange. Huge gears floated in the air one after another. The gears were all different in shape, and the light they gave off was different as well. There were gray, black, green, red, and so on. The gears were like stars in the outside world. They gave off a faint light, embellishing the space with various colors. Beneath the void, there was a dark gray land. On this land, there were grayish-black withered branches that looked like ferocious ghosts baring their fangs and brandishing their claws. Beneath the withered branches were piles of beast skulls and human skeletons. There were countless of them. The entire dark land was filled with a dense aura of death. Zhuan also found that there was finally heavenly energy in this world, and it was extremely dense. He knew that he had really left Gong Gong's dimensional world this time. The exit of the cave Zhuan was in was a huge withered branch. The withered branch looked like a bloody mouth. It was facing the exit of the cave as if it wanted to devour every cultivator who came out. Zhuan looked around and didn't see Yao Xiangjuan and Jiang Qixing. He frowned slightly. He had only come out about 4 hours later than the two of them. Logically speaking, Yao Xiangjuan and Jiang Qixing should have been waiting at the exit for a while, but he didn't see them. Did they leave as soon as they came out? Zhuowen was still a little worried, so he used the art of divination and found that Yao Xiangjuan and Jiang Qixing were in a very bad situation. Yi Hanfei. Zhuowen quickly thought of Yi Hanfei. Among the human race, the only person Yao Xiangjuan and Jiang Qixing had a grudge against was Yi Hanfei. As for the other races, They must have gone all out to find Gong Gong's corpse after entering this place. How could they have the time to deal with Yao Xiangjuan and Jiang Qixing? Human, do you want me to take you directly to where my master's goo worms are? The dark creature turned around and asked Zhuan. Wait, I still have some things to deal with. Come with me for the time being. Zhuan said and took the lead to rush in a direction. He had used the art of divination just now to calculate the approximate location of Yao Xiangjuan and Jiang Qixing. He only calculated that the two of them were in a bad situation. He didn't know why, but he could guess that it must have something to do with Yi Hanfei. Yi Hanfei had taken advantage of the gap between Zhuan and the dark creature to enter the cave and injure Yao Xiangjuan and Jiang Qixing. He had already angered Zhuan. Now that Yi Hanfei was unwilling to let him go and even went to find his friends after leaving the cave, Zhuan couldn't be blamed for not being polite. Yi Hanfei, you're courting death. Don't blame me for being merciless. Zhuan's eyes shone with a cold light as he flew. His speed increased by a lot once again. Chapter 2986. Hurrying over in a gully in a gray area, a handsome young man was sitting leisurely on a thick branch of a huge withered tree. His back was leaning against the tree trunk that was as thick as 3 people's arms. The handsome young man had a playful expression on his face. His gaze fell on the 2 figures under the tree, and a smile appeared at the corner of his mouth. The 2 figures were a man and a woman. The man was quite strong and his wheat-colored skin exuded a healthy complexion, while the woman was extremely beautiful, enough to make many women jealous. However, the man and woman were surrounded by a ring of red energy. The red energy emitted a scorching hot aura and was extremely destructive. The 2 of them had their backs against each other, and their expressions were rather unsightly. From their panting appearance, it could be seen that they were barely able to resist the red energy band around them. Yi Hanfei, why do you keep targeting us? You're actually waiting for us at the exit. You're a genius of the human clan, but instead of dealing with the foreign races, you're attacking us. Don't you feel ashamed? The man in the red energy band looked angrily at the handsome young man on the withered tree and could not help but berate him. The handsome young man sitting on the withered tree was the strongest genius of the Yin and Yang divine sect, Yi Hanfei. The man and woman trapped by the red energy band were naturally Jiang Qixing and Yao Xiangjuan, who had just parted with Zhuan. Originally, the 2 of them had smoothly passed through the cave and planned to wait for Zhuan at the exit. However, they never expected that as soon as they came out of the cave, they would be ambushed by Yi Hanfei, seriously injured, and then brought here. The red energy band was a kind of torture tool called the blood shrink. It would constantly shrink as time passed, constantly compressing the cultivator trapped in the blood shrink. When the blood shrink was completely closed, the cultivator trapped inside would be crushed into a bloody pulp. This was a very cruel torture. It would not immediately kill you, but through this continuous compression, it would create a strong sense of fear, causing the person to eventually die of fear. Obviously, Yi Hanfei wanted to watch Jiang Qixing and Yao Xiangjuan slowly die of fear like this. What does this have to do with the foreign races? You colluded with Long One to insult me. Have you ever considered our friendship as fellow human beings? Today, I just want to wash away the humiliation that you and Long One brought me. But don't worry, after you die, I will go and find that Long One again. I will forcefully kill him and make him accompany you in the underworld, so that you will also have a companion. A cruel smile appeared on Yi Hanfei's face. When he thought about the scene of him finding Long One and killing him, he felt a perverted pleasure. You were just defeated by Brother Long. Even if you fight Brother Long again, the final result won't change at all. You'll definitely lose. Jiang Qixing said coldly. Really? Yi Hanfei didn't care at all. Instead, he looked at Yao Xiangjuan and said, Junior apprentice Sister Yao, you also think that Long One will be my match. In this world filled with the energy of the heavenly Tao, I can use all my trump cards. I think Junior Sister Yao knows a little about trump cards, right? Yao Xiangjuan's beautiful eyes changed slightly, revealing a trace of worry. Jiang Qixing also noticed the change in Yao Xiangjuan's expression and felt a little nervous. Could Yi Hanfei really have some powerful trump cards? In fact, after Yi Hanfei said those words, he already somewhat believed it because he also had his own trump cards. Back in that strange world, because there was no heavenly Tao energy, he couldn't use them. Now that he was out, he could naturally use such a trump card. However, he had already used such a trump card, but it had been easily broken by Yi Hanfei. The gap between the two of them was still a little big. Yi Hanfei was much stronger than him, so he didn't find it strange that he had a more powerful trump card. As for Longwen, Jiang Qixing was actually not confident that the former would have a powerful trump card because as far as he knew, Longwen seemed to be just a loose cultivator. Yi Hanfei was backed by a Dao Palace force like the Yin and Yang Divine Sect, while Longwen was just a loose cultivator. The difference in background between the two was huge. Jiang Qixing didn't need to think to know that Longwen definitely didn't have any powerful trump cards. Jiang Qixing even believed that the trump cards on him might be stronger than Longwen's. When he thought up to this point, Jiang Qixing was slightly worried, but he wasn't worried that his life would be in danger. He knew that Yi Hanfei had captured them and was determined to kill them. He knew that it would be impossible for them to escape this calamity. He was worried about Longwen because Longwen clearly didn't know that Yi Hanfei had some sort of powerful trump card. If Yi Hanfei found Longwen again and they fought again, then perhaps Longwen would suffer a huge loss. Longwen had helped him a lot, and he wasn't an ungrateful person. However, he was slightly helpless. He couldn't even protect himself now, let alone warn Longwen. Moreover, Yi Hanfei had destroyed his communication jade talisman, so it was quite impossible for him to use it to contact Longwen. Junior sister Yao, are you afraid that you'll regret it? Actually, I just need a single word from you and I'll let you go. Yi Hanfei's gaze descended onto Yao Xiangjuan, and there was a trace of a strange expression in the depths of his eyes while an ambiguous smile appeared on the corners of his mouth. Yao Xiangjuan's beautiful eyes coldly glanced at Yi Hanfei and said, Yi Hanfei, don't think too much. I'd rather follow a beast than follow you. Yi Hanfei looked angry and said hatefully, since you don't know how to appreciate kindness, then I won't persuade you anymore. You'd better go to hell with Jiang Qixing. With that, Yi Hanfei waved his sleeve and the red energy belt that was originally revolving around Jiang Qixing and Yao Xiangjuan began to shrink faster. Jiang Qixing and Yao Xiangjuan suddenly felt the pressure, and fine beads of sweat appeared on their foreheads as they constantly urged their energy to stop the shrinking of the blood belt. Unfortunately, their efforts were clearly useless as they couldn't stop the shrinking of the blood belt at all. The two sighed in their hearts, knowing that they couldn't escape this calamity. Although they were unwilling to die like this, there was nothing they could do. Just as the two closed their eyes and waited for death, the sound of rushing wind suddenly swept over like a sudden thunderclap, and it was exceptionally ear-piercing. Yi Hanfei raised his head slightly and noticed a black dot in the distance, and his eyes narrowed. When he saw the appearance of the person coming, his eyes revealed a trace of excitement, and he suddenly stood up and laughed. Longwen, there's a path to heaven, but you don't want to take it. There's no door to hell, but you insist on barging in. Chapter 2987. A dark creature suddenly appeared. Yi Hanfei roared with laughter as he leaped into the air, transforming into a streak of light as he charged toward Zhuan. Yi Hanfei was very confident. In this environment filled with heavenly Tao energy, he could fully unleash the power of a late-stage god of creation. He was several times stronger than when he was in that strange world. He knew that if he faced Longwen again, he would be able to crush him even if he didn't use his trump cards. Brother Long, you have to be careful of Yi Hanfei. Jiang Qixing and Yao Xiangjuan also noticed Zhuan and hurriedly warned him. Zhuan was expressionless as he hurried over. He soon discovered that Yi Hanfei had appeared in front of him at some point. Yi Hanfei's aura was several times stronger than before. This was clearly due to the presence of heavenly Tao energy. Longwen, go to hell. Yi Hanfei's right fist was filled with blazing golden light that was even more dazzling than the sun. It instantly arrived in front of Zhuan. Zhuan's eyes were cold as he stretched out his right hand and grabbed Yi Hanfei's fist. The power of his peak 5-star Pangu's sacred body erupted. Then, Zhuan suddenly twisted, and Yi Hanfei's right hand was broken. Yi Hanfei screamed in pain. However, just as Yi Hanfei screamed, Yun raised his left hand and slapped Yi Hanfei's face. The loud slap completely covered Yi Hanfei's screams. Yi Hanfei was directly smashed into the ground, creating a huge crater. Zhuan ignored Yi Hanfei and slowly landed in front of Jiang Qixing and Yao Xiangjuan. Jiang Qixing and Yao Xiangjuan were completely stunned. They didn't expect that Yi Hanfei, who was at his peak, would be so weak in front of Zhuan. Could it be that they were hallucinating? Torture and blood contraction? Zhuan narrowed his eyes as he looked at the red energy ribbons around Jiang Qixing and Yao Xiangjuan, his expression unfriendly. This Yi Hanfei was really too much. He actually used torture tools for interrogating prisoners on Jiang Qixing and Yao Xiangjuan. He was planning to slowly torture them to death. You two wait, I'll break this blood contraction. Zhuan's expression turned serious. With a wave of his sleeve, he produced a formation disc made of beast bones. Then he performed a double-handed incantation gesture and began to break the blood contraction. The essence of the blood shrinkage was also a kind of array formation restriction, so it was not difficult for Zhuan to break it. While Zhuan was breaking the blood contraction, Yi Hanfei suddenly rushed out of the pit not far away. His expression was somewhat miserable, but his eyes were filled with anger and a trace of fear. Just now, he was actually slapped to the ground by Long Wen without any resistance. Long Wen's strength was actually much stronger than before. This guy is trying to decipher the blood contraction. Is he completely ignoring me? I'll make you pay a painful price. Yi Hanfei soon noticed Zhuan not far away, who was breaking the blood contraction. A sneer appeared at the corner of his mouth, and then he took out 3 talismans of different colors. The 3 talismans were red, yellow, and blue. Yi Hanfei performed a double-handed incantation gesture and summoned the 3 talismans. Suddenly, the surface of the talismans emitted 3 kinds of dazzling brilliance, and then they floated around Yi Hanfei's body like a protective umbrella. The moment the 3 talismans revolved around him, Yi Hanfei's aura became much more powerful than before. His aura had also undergone an earth-shattering change. Yi Hanfei stomped on the ground and shot out like an arrow. Due to the 3 talismans around him, the afterimages he left behind were of 3 different colors. Brother Long, be careful. Yao Xiangjuan and Jiang Qixing naturally saw Yi Hanfei's momentum soar after summoning the 3 talismans, and they both cried out in alarm to warn Zhuan. Long Wen, don't worry about us for now. Yi Hanfei is attacking you now, so you deal with him first. Yao Xiangjuan said anxiously. However, Zhuan shook his head and said, the blood contraction is about to begin. There's no time to waste. Otherwise, all of you will die. How can you be like this? If you don't stop, all 3 of us will die. Yao Xiangjuan stomped her foot and said. However, Zhuan acted as if he didn't hear her, and he meticulously continued to break the blood contraction as if Yi Hanfei didn't exist. You still dare to ignore me at a time like this? Very well, it seems like you don't even want to live anymore. Yi Hanfei's heart was filled with anger, and the killing intent in his eyes rose to the extreme. He must make this guy who dared to ignore him several times regret for the rest of his life. Soon, Yi Hanfei rushed behind Zhuan and slammed his right hand forward. 3 talismans condensed into 3-colored energy that gathered in Yi Hanfei's palm, and then fiercely slammed into Zhuan's back. Yi Hanfei's attack borrowed the power of the 3 talismans, and it was many times more powerful than before. It's over. Yao Xiangjuan and Jiang Qixing saw that Yi Hanfei had already rushed behind Zhuan, and his palm was fiercely aimed at Zhuan's back. However, Zhuan remained indifferent. They knew that Zhuan was finished. Bang! With a muffled sound, the 2 of them only saw a black shadow flash before their eyes. Soon after, they saw Yi Hanfei, whose momentum was like a rainbow, fly backwards in an extremely sorry state, blood flowing out of his mouth. Yi Hanfei forcefully flipped his body in midair and planted his feet on the ground, barely stabilizing his body. He looked at Zhuan in horror. Behind Zhuan, an incomparably huge black shadow blocked Zhuan's path. It was this black shadow that had sent Yi Hanfei flying. It's that exotic beast. When Yi Hanfei saw the true face of the black shadow, his eyes were filled with shock. This black shadow was actually the dark creature that had been guarding outside the cave. Why did the dark creature come out and help the dragon rune? Yi Hanfei was puzzled. Yao Xiangjuan and Jiang Qixing were also surprised. They also recognized the identity of the black shadow. At the same time, they looked at Zhuan with strange gazes. Although they didn't know why the dark creature would appear here, they guessed that it must be related to the dragon rune. However, the next scene made the two of them feel a little dizzy. Zhuan said indifferently while breaking the blood shrink, "You there, go and get rid of that annoying fly. I'm annoyed just looking at it. How dare it disturb me when I'm doing something? Longwen must be crazy. The dark creature's strength is so terrifying. It must be a wild and untamed fellow." Now, Longwen actually called out to you there, and even asked the dark creature to kill Yi Hanfei. He's completely treating the dark creature as a hired thug. He's courting death. Chapter 2988. The Yama ghost diagram shows its might. The dark creature's eyes flickered, but it didn't refute Longwen. Instead, it stomped its feet and charged toward Yi Hanfei as Zhuowen had instructed. Its terrifying aura was released unreservedly. He actually listened to Longwen's words. Yao Xiangjuan's cherry lips parted slightly as she muttered to herself, revealing her shock. Jiang Qixing's expression wasn't any better than Yao Xiangjuan's. Yi Hanfei's eyeballs almost fell out of their sockets. What the hell was going on? Why did the dark creature listen to Longwen? However, what happened next didn't allow Yi Hanfei to hesitate. This was because the dark creature had already arrived in front of him. Its huge, sharp claws tore through space and landed before him. It was as if the claws were going to crush him into pieces. Yi Hanfei took a deep breath and suddenly struck out dozens of palms with both hands. Each of his palms blasted out a terrifying three-colored energy. This was the terrifying power that Yi Hanfei had unleashed with the help of the three-colored talisman. It was many times stronger than his own strength. Bang! Yi Hanfei's palm collided with the dark creature's, and the powerful force actually blasted the dark creature's sharp claws away. However, Yi Hanfei didn't have it easy. He grunted and couldn't help but retreat. He spat out a mouthful of blood and looked extremely miserable. The dark creature wasn't injured, but its eyes were filled with surprise. It didn't expect the human in front of it to suddenly become so powerful that he could block its attack. It should be known that the dark creature's strength was actually around the mid-stage or late stage of the Lord of Creation realm. In terms of strength, it was enough to crush most of the geniuses who had entered the door of darkness this time. The reason it lost to Zhuowen wasn't that Zhuowen was too strong, but that Zhuowen cultivated the Panga's sacred body and fused 3 types of ancestral wizard venomous insects. It was just enough to suppress the dark creature. Therefore, in the sealed land, the dark creature was entangled by Zhuowen and couldn't take down Zhuowen for a long time. The dark creature reacted and roared furiously. The scales on its body stood up, and its aura instantly increased by several times. The dark creature's figure flashed like a ghost in the night, turning into an afterimage and sweeping toward Yi Hanfei. Bang! 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 The dark creature's speed became extremely fast. Every time it collided with Yi Hanfei spat out a mouthful of blood. Under the lightning-like attacks of the dark creature, Yi Hanfei's face was extremely pale, and the 3 talismans surrounding him also became a little dim. If Yi Hanfei's were the 3 talismans, he would have been killed by the dark creature in one move of the dark creature. Damn it! Red talisman, red talisman. Yi Hanfei roared and suddenly grabbed the red talisman among the 3 talismans and threw it out. Instantly, the red talisman turned into a monstrous flame that swept out and engulfed the dark creature. Inai. E was. He yellow, is studio. The moment the yellow talisman landed on the dark creature's body, it exploded with a yellow light. Immediately, the dark creature froze and became motionless. Yi Hanfei flew toward Zhuowen the moment the dark creature froze. He did not hide the killing intent in his eyes. He must kill this despicable guy this time. Zhuowen was still breaking the blood contract, as if he did not see Hanfei flying toward him. Longwen, go to hell. Let's see who can protect you this time. Yi Hanfei's maniacal laughter was getting closer and closer. Jiang Qixing and Yao Xiangjuan became even more restless. Yi Hanfei grabbed the last blue talisman and threw it at Xun. Wherever the blue talisman passed, a world of ice and snow formed a terrifying ice barrier in the surrounding space. The cold air seemed to be able to freeze everything in the world. However, the moment the ice barrier reached Zhuowen, a terrifying black gas suddenly surged out of Zhuowen's body. This black qi carried a strong aura of death. The black qi instantly enveloped Zhuowen, Yao Xiangjuan, and Jiang Qixing, who were still bleeding. Bang, bang, bang. When the ice barrier completely appeared in the area where Zhuowen and the others were, the black gas rushed up, and the ice barrier actually collapsed and shattered. The moment the ice barrier shattered, the strange black gas shot out with a whoosh and turned into a ferocious ghost face that flew towards Yi Han. Yi Hanfei's pupils shrank. He kept retreating. At the same time, energy surged out of his body and slammed into the ghost face. However, he soon realized that his attack did not cause any substantial damage to the ghost face at all. The ghost face completely ignored his attack and arrived in front of him. Then, it opened its pitch-black mouth and tried to swallow him whole. Yi Hanfei wanted to dodge, but he was shocked to find that he was surrounded by a strange black gas. Furthermore, the black gas seemed to have some kind of strange power that made him feel like he was stuck in a swamp and couldn't escape. No. Facing the approaching ghost face and its gaping mouth, Yi Hanfei felt the fear of death. He screamed, but soon his screams came to an abrupt end because the ghost face had completely swallowed Yi Hanfei. The moment Yi Hanfei was swallowed, the black gas kept shrinking until it was all drawn into an ordinary-looking black scroll. Zhuowen and the other two's figures retreated from the black gas and appeared in their line of sight. The black scroll transformed into a black shadow and entered Zhuowen's body, disappearing without a trace. Where's Yi Hanfei? At this moment, the blood contraction had been broken by Zhuan. Yao Xiangjuan and Jiang Qixing had also regained their freedom. They looked around but did not see Yi Hanfei's figure. They were surprised. He knew he was no match for us, so he ran away. Zhuowen smiled faintly, but he did not explain what had just happened. The black scroll that appeared just now was the Yama's demon portrait. Zhuan had obtained it from the top secret place of the Ten Extremities Een Corpse sect. It was a divine artifact that was extremely powerful. This was Zhuowen's first time using the Yama's ghost portrait. The power displayed by the Yama's ghost portrait shocked Zhuowen. Yi Hanfei was swallowed by the ghost face formed by the Yama's ghost portrait. Such an attack was very strange. The Yama's demon portrait was Zhuowen's biggest secret. It was even more precious than the Ho-Yi divine bow and Ho-Yi divine arrow. He naturally would not reveal such a thing unless there was something wrong with his head. Yao Xiangjuan and Jiang Qixing didn't think too much about it. They knew that Yi Hanfei had escaped, so they reminded Zhuowen to be careful. After all, Yi Hanfei was a vengeful person who would take revenge for the smallest grievance. He would definitely not let Zhuowen off the hook after suffering losses at his hands. The dark creature not far away had already broken free from its frozen state. It came to Zhuowen's side and looked at the young man with fear. Chapter 2989. Gear Zone, Brother Dragon. Why is this dark creature following you? And it seems to be very obedient to you? Yao Xiangjuan and Jiang Qixing came to Zhuowen's side and looked at the dark creature standing not far away from Zhuowen cautiously. They could still clearly remember how terrifying the dark creatures were when they left the strange world's exit. Logically speaking, such a powerful creature should be proud and arrogant and would never submit to others. But Zhuowen did it. I came to an agreement with it. I will break its seal, and it will help me find something. It's that simple, Zhuowen said with a faint smile. Seeing that Zhuowen didn't intend to say more, the two wisely didn't ask. By the way, Brother Dragon, when we appeared at the exit earlier, we saw Zhong Li, Hao Yan, and the others rushing in that direction. I think they should have found the place where Gong Gong fell. Yao Xiangjuan pointed ahead and said in a deep voice. Zhuowen didn't answer, but looked at the dark creature beside him. The latter said in a deep voice, That is indeed the place where the goo worm is sealed, and my master's real body is also placed there. Vun looked pensive. The dark creature had told him that the strange world they were in was Gong Gong's inner world. He thought that once they left the exit, the place where Gong Gong's body was placed should be outside. But now it seemed that Gong Gong was quite thoughtful. He divided the body and inner world into two areas, so that people who came in would have an illusion. However, you can rest assured that the place where my master's physical body is stored is even more dangerous than his inner world. Those fellows who came in and wanted to seize my master's physical body are simply wishful thinking. The dark creature sneered. Then what if I want Gong Gong's body? Juan asked. The dark creature's words were immediately choked. He glanced at Juan and said indifferently, "That will depend on your own ability. My master's body is preserved by my master. I don't know the real way to enter the storage place. I'm only responsible for helping you find the goo worm." Juan nodded. He was just asking casually. He could see that the dark creature's loyalty to Gong Gong wasn't high. If Gong Gong left everything after his death to this guy, he would probably be miserable. According to you, the place where Gong Gong's body is stored is completely different from the place where the goo worm is sealed? Juan asked with narrowed eyes. The dark creature confirmed. Then I'll go to the place where the goo worm is sealed. Juan nodded. Then he looked at Yao Xiangjuan and Jiang Qixing. Brother Jiang, junior sister Yao, you go to where Zhong Li and Hao Yen went. Hao Yen and Hao Yen went. If anything happens, remember to send me a message. After Yi Hanfei's death, Juan wasn't worried about Jiang Qixing and Yao Xiangjuan's safety. Moreover, Yi Qixing and Jiang Qixing had a good relationship. When they arrived at Gong Gong's storage place, Yi Qixing would definitely take care of them. Jiang Qixing and Yao Xiangjuan also guessed that Juan might be going to do something very important. Moreover, it wasn't suitable for them to know about it, so the two didn't say much. They just told Juan to be careful, then cupped their fists and left the place. After watching Yao Xiangjuan and Jiang Qixing leave, Juan called out to the dark creature. The latter nodded and brought Juan in another direction. Far away in the gray area, the void here was filled with strange gears. These gears emitted all kinds of colors. Moreover, these gears didn't exist independently, but were connected to each other. They were rotating continuously. As long as one of the gears rotated, it would cause the other gears to rotate as well. The sound of gears rotating could be heard in the void, constantly echoing in everyone's ears. In this gray area, there was a very vast open space. This open space was very close to the countless gears in the void, as if it was about to connect. If one looked at it from a distance, one could see that the gears in the void and the open space below seemed to be connected. They were originally one. A group of people gathered in the open space. This group consisted of both humans and aliens. The humans were naturally led by Zhong Li, Hao Yen, and Yi Qixing, while the aliens were led by the Phoenix peoples Saintus and Moses. However, the two groups of people looked at the open space above with solemn gazes. The void was filled with countless gears. In the deepest part above the gears, everyone saw a faintly discernible figure. This figure was very large, as if it stretched across the sky and covered the sun. However, this figure was lying horizontally, motionless. It was either dead or in a deep sleep. Everyone present felt their hearts tremble the moment they saw the huge figure. Their eyes were filled with excitement and joy. This was because they all knew that the figure lying horizontally was their goal in entering the door of darkness this time, ancestral shaman Gonggong. That should be the body of ancestral shaman Gonggong. However, the strange gears arranged in the void make me very wary. They're not simple. Yi Qixing frowned slightly, his eyes flickering. Zhong Li, who was standing beside Yi Qixing, didn't look very good. Her divine instincts were much sharper than Yi Qixing's. Even she didn't have much confidence in being able to pass through this area of gears and get close to Gonggong's body. This should be something the ancestral shaman set up before he died. His goal should be to protect his body after he died. The Phoenix people's Saintus looked at Zhong Li Hao Yen and spoke. Zhong Li Hao Yen nodded in agreement. Just as she was about to speak, a sonic boom suddenly swept out from the group behind her. Zhong Li Haoyan's beautiful eyes flashed with surprise. She immediately discovered a human cultivator with a greedy look in his eyes. He turned into a streak of light and rushed into the void, muttering that the blood essence of Gonggong's body was his. "Be careful!" Zhong Li Haoyan shouted. Unfortunately, the human cultivator was already filled with greedy thoughts. He didn't pay attention to Zhong Li Haoyan's shout at all. His eyes were only fixed on Gonggong's body in the depths of the void. "Damn it, why is this guy so impulsive?" Yi Qixin cursed. He knew that it was too late to stop him. After all, the human cultivator was too fast and caught him off guard. He didn't expect this at all. By the time he reacted, the human cultivator had already arrived in front of the gear area. Then, everyone saw with their own eyes that the human cultivator suddenly burrowed into the gear area. Everyone thought that the human cultivator would be ground to death by the terrifying power of the gears in the gear area. However, unexpectedly, the human cultivator didn't die in the gear area as everyone expected. Instead, he easily passed through the gear area and entered the void, his figure quickly disappearing from everyone's sight. Chapter 2990. Fanning the Flames? He went in just like that? No way, we've been waiting here for so long, thinking that this gear zone is terrifying and definitely not a good place. After half a day of discussion, this gear zone is just a decoration. It seems that we've all been deceived. This gear zone isn't that big of a deal. Discussions rose one after another. Whether it was the human race or the other race, they were all eager to make a move, their eyes blazing as they looked at the gear zone in the void. After waiting for a few minutes, they realized that the human race cultivator who had entered the gear zone still hadn't let out a scream. Everyone couldn't help it. Bush, bush, bush. Whether it was the human race or the other race, figures flew out one after another. Many people impatiently rushed into the gear zone in the void, the sound of the air being torn apart constantly rang out. Zhong Li Haoyan and Yi Qidong wanted to stop them, but it was useless. Everyone seemed to have gone crazy. In their eyes, there was only the essence blood of Gonggong's body. As long as they could obtain the essence blood of the ancestral witch, with the help of its magical effects, they might be able to soar into the sky and advance to a higher realm. Even if they didn't use it, they could bring it back to the sect. The essence blood could be exchanged for many good things, enough for them to advance. The situation between the human race and the other race was basically the same. Most of the other race rushed out like crazy and rushed into the gear zone. Soon, there were only a few cultivators left in the open space. Among them were Zhong Li Haoyan, Yi Qidong, the Phoenix People's Holy Maiden, and Moses. In addition to these four, there were a few people whose auras weren't very strong, so Zhong Li Haoyan and the others didn't pay too much attention to them. Basically, everyone has gone in. What should we do next? Yi Qidong was a little uncertain. Zhong Li Haoyan didn't say anything. Her bright eyes fell on the Phoenix People's Holy Maiden not far away. Clearly, she wanted to see what the Phoenix People's Holy Maiden would decide. The Phoenix People's Holy Maiden only pondered for a moment, then spoke with Moses for a while. The two of them then used their movement techniques and entered the gear zone. "Let's go in too." Zhong Li Haoyan sighed. She knew that there was no other good way. Although she knew that this gear zone was definitely not a good place, she was not worried about leaving without even going in. After all, the body of ancestor Magus Gonggong was right in front of him. It was not too much to take a risk for the blood essence of ancestor Magus. Yi Qidong also knew what Zhong Li Haoyan was thinking. He didn't say anything, his feet lightly stepping on the air. Like an arrow shooting out, he followed closely behind Zhong Li Haoyan. At this moment, there were still 3 people left in the open space. These 3 people's auras were not strong, and the most conspicuous one was a very fat man. This fatty's eyes weren't big, but they were exceptionally bright. With one look, one could tell that he was a very clever character. As for the other 2, they looked very ordinary. They should be the 2 weakest humans. They stood in place, hesitating. Clearly, they were not confident that they could enter the gear zone. "I say, brothers, the others have already gone in. Why don't you 2 go in?" The fatty put his arm around their shoulders and took the initiative to talk. One of the pointy-faced men turned around, looked at the fatty, and sighed. Our cultivation is really too low. Only the Lord of Mystery is here. This kind of cultivation is at the bottom of the group. Not to mention that this gear zone is definitely full of danger. Even if there were no danger, we can't compete with the others. If we go in, we'll lose our lives. I think it's safer for us to wait here, another round-faced man agreed. So that's how it is. The fatty's eyes flashed and he laughed. Do you know that long one? I remember that he's also the Lord of Mystery. But he was able to defeat the Yin and Yang divine sects Chao Kongqing and the Merfolk's elder MDA. I don't think the Lord of Mystery is weak. It's you guys who are not confident. The pointy-faced man shook his head. That long one is a freak. Although he's the Lord of Mystery, he has the battle prowess of a creator. I admit that he's a freak, but among the people who entered the door of darkness this time, his strength can only be considered above average at best. He probably won't gain much in there. However, the fatty shook his head and said, let me tell you guys, when it comes to treasures, it's not that the stronger one is, the higher the chance one has. Instead, it's that the higher one's luck, the higher the chance one has. If you guys don't even dare to try, then you won't have any chance at all. If you try, then you'll have some chance. This is the trillion-mile escape talisman. Each of you will have one. If you encounter danger, this talisman can save your life. The fatty took out 2 gray talismans and handed them to the 2 cultivators without a change in expression. Trillion-mile escape talisman? Fellow cultivator, this is too precious. The 2 cultivators took the gray talismans and realized that they were really trillion-mile escape talismans. Their legs almost gave out. This escape talisman could instantly send a cultivator hundreds of millions of miles away at an extremely fast speed. With this kind of escape talisman, even third-step Dao validation cultivators wouldn't be able to catch you. However, this escape talisman was extremely precious. Generally, only genius disciples with real status in Dao Palace forces could have it. Moreover, it was extremely rare. Now, the fatty in front of them took out 2 of these escape talismans. It was really shocking for them. At the same time, they were secretly delighted. If they had these escape talismans, they were confident that they could enter the gear zone. At least, they wouldn't have to worry about their lives after entering. Hey, we're all brothers in the 4 Cs. You don't have to be so polite. I feel like old friends with you too at first sight. It's only right that I help you. The fatty waved his hand and said heroically. The 2 cultivators were excited. They looked at the fatty with more and more gratitude. The pointy-faced cultivator said excitedly, we still don't know your name, fellow cultivator. We're inner disciples of the Kunming sect. I'm Lu Yang, and he's my junior brother, Qin Chu. So it's brother Lu Yang and brother Qin Chu. My name is Ma Yujie. You too can call me Brother Ma. The fatty smiled. That's right. Brother Ma, do you want to go in with us? That way, the 3 of us can take care of each other. The pointy-faced cultivator invited. Ma Yujie waved his hand and said, no need. The reason why I haven't gone in yet is because I'm waiting for my friend. Now that my friend hasn't arrived yet, I plan to continue waiting. If you two can't wait, you can go in first. Otherwise, all the good things inside will be snatched away. Ma Yujie's words fanned the flames. Immediately, the 2 cultivators were enraged. They hurriedly cupped their hands at Ma Yujie and rushed into the gear zone. Chapter 2991. Trillion-mile talisman. Ma Yujie didn't just give out these 2 billion-mile escape talismans. Before he came here, he had secretly sold them to the surrounding human and alien races, and he did it very secretly. Of course, the so-called trillion-mile talismans that Ma Yujie gave out weren't real. Instead, they were made with ordinary talismans to pass off as genuine. It could be said that Ma Yujie's talismans were very popular. In addition, when Ma Yujie gave out the talismans, he seemed very mysterious. Many cultivators who received the talismans thought that they had gotten a great deal. At the same time, some cultivators despised this fatty for having a problem with his head. Of course, Ma Yujie didn't have a problem with his head. He didn't give out these fake trillion-mile talismans for fun. Instead, he set up a very secret surveillance formation in each talisman. What the cultivators who received the talismans saw and heard would naturally be recorded by the surveillance formation. Then it would be transmitted to Ma Yujie. Ma Yujie could use this information to continuously analyze and unearth the real treasures of the gear zone. It could be said that Ma Yujie's method was really amazing. He didn't need to take any risks and let the majority of the cultivators explore for free. Moreover, he knew all the scenes and locations that the cultivators explored. Then, he only needed to select a few dangerous places to have a high chance of finding the correct path through the gear zone. Of course, Ma Yujie felt it was a pity that he didn't succeed in selling the talismans to Yi Qidong, Zhongli Hao Yan, the Phoenix People's Saintess, and the other top geniuses. It had to be said that these top geniuses were very cautious. In addition, they all had the corresponding talismans on them, so they didn't accept the fake talismans that Ma Yujie gave out. This made Ma Yujie feel very regretful. Speaking of which, I haven't seen Zhuan. When he was at the exit, I saw him fighting against the dark creature. Could it be that he died there? Ma Yujie received the information from the talismans in the gear zone and thought of Zhuan. He had long since confirmed that the cultivator disguised as the scarred youth was Zhuan. However, he didn't expose him, or rather, he didn't dare. Jin was not the only one who had offended Senki In. Ma Yujie himself had done the same. If he were to expose Zhuan, Ma Yujie would definitely expose him as well. The result of this would definitely be a loss for both sides. Therefore, Ma Yujie wisely chose to remain silent. 2 more people are coming. Ma Yujie suddenly let out a soft cry of surprise. He discovered that 2 streams of light were rushing over from afar. He hurriedly stood up, took out the 2 fake escape talismans that he had prepared earlier, and went forward to meet them. 2 streams of light entered the open space. It was a man and a woman. The man was quite handsome, but the woman was extremely beautiful. She was simply devastatingly beautiful. The moment Ma Yujie saw the beautiful woman, his eyes narrowed slightly. He was no stranger to this woman. When he was in the 8 heavens, he had seen this woman. It seemed that this woman had a close relationship with Zhuan. Fortunately, Ma Yujie had already changed his appearance. Although he still had a big belly, his temperament and appearance were completely different, so Yao Xiangjuan didn't recognize him. After Jiang Qixing and Yao Xiangjuan landed in the open space, they first looked around in confusion. Immediately, they noticed that in the void above the open space, countless gears were rotating and emitting various brilliances. At the same time, in the depths of the gears, a huge figure lying horizontally attracted their attention. There really is the body of ancestral shaman Gonggong here. Yao Xiangjuan looked at the looming figure in the depths of the void and couldn't help but exclaim in surprise. Jiang Qixing's eyes were extremely solemn. He said in a deep voice, "Junior sister Yao, do you still remember Brother Long's instructions? The place where Gonggong's body is stored is definitely full of dangers. We have to be careful." Yao Xiangjuan came back to her senses and noticed the countless gears in the sky, as well as the strange creaking sounds they made as they rotated. She took a deep breath and calmed down. It seems that the teams of the human race and the alien race should have entered the gear zone to get close to Gonggong's body. Jiang Qixing calmly analyzed. Fellow Taoist's analysis is very good. You're right. The human race and the alien race have entered. However, I have to remind you that the gear zone is full of dangers. You 2 fellow Taoists have to be careful. Don't fail miserably. A mellow voice sounded, and Yao Xiangjuan and Jiang Qixing finally looked at Ma Yujie. They had already seen the fat man before they came, but they didn't pay much attention to him. The fat man's aura wasn't strong. It was probably because his cultivation base was too low that he didn't dare to enter the gear zone. The 2 of them were actually somewhat disdainful of such a coward, so they didn't talk to the fat man as soon as they entered. Ma Yujie naturally saw the disdain in Jiang Qixing and Yao Xiangjuan's eyes, but he didn't care. He handed over 2 gray talismans he had already prepared and said with a smile, "Fellow Taoists, it's really too dangerous to enter the gear zone. These are 2 billion-kilometer talismans. Take them well. They can save your lives at a critical moment." Billion-kilometer talismans? You're actually giving such precious talismans to us? Yao Xiangjuan asked in surprise. Jiang Qisheng frowned and coldly said, "Fellow Taoist, I don't believe you would be so kind as to give us such precious talismans." As Jiang Qisheng said this, he used his divine sense to examine the talismans in Ma Yujia's hand, but he didn't find anything strange. The 2 billion-kilometer talismans were actually real. This made Jiang Qisheng even more puzzled. He had never met the fat man before, so why would he give him such precious talismans? Moreover, why didn't the fat man enter the gear zone with such things? Why was he still wandering around outside? You might be wondering why I didn't enter with these talismans, right? In fact, I'm waiting for my friend here. We agreed to meet here and then enter together to search for Gonggong's body. Ma Yujia shook his head and said with some grievance, "The reason I gave you these talismans is because I know you're my friend's friend. Since we're all friends, I naturally wouldn't watch you enter the gear zone without any protection." Friend's friend? Are you Brother Long's friend? Jiang Qisheng was startled and immediately asked in surprise. But soon, Jiang Qisheng asked in confusion, "I just met Brother Long not long ago. How did you know?" "Of course I don't know you, but I know the girl beside you. When she and Longwen were outside the door of darkness, they were very intimate. Longwen told me all this and also told me to help you when you came. You're tuning in to the Passion Pages YouTube channel. We're so grateful for your support, and don't forget to subscribe to join us on this incredible journey through captivating stories. Your generosity through donations truly makes a world of difference, as it's the primary source of revenue that allows me to expand and enhance this channel for you. Thank you from the bottom of my heart for being a part of this adventure.